Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei is the son of Great Red and Ophis Part 2. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the MAIRSARMY321 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. A certain distance away, outside the shrine, the two children were playing random games that they were able to think of on the spot. At the moment, that game happens to be hide and seek. Currently Issei was seeking and Akeno was hiding. 18, 19, 20. Ready or not, here I come. Games. They continued into a circle of distractions and jovial complaints as the two solidified their friendship. Over time, they had learned of each other's dislikes and likes, slowly building foundations of friendship over their simple talk. Both of them seemed to go on for hours, not even seeming a bit tired due to how much fun they were having in the company of one another. Eventually, when both started to get exhausted, mostly Akeno due to her human physiology, they decided to take a break while talking about their individual experiences. Issei talked about his experience in the dimensional gap and even the small amount of training he did, spanning from learning to use his wings and even breathing fire. I say breathing fire, but it's just a small spark compared to my parents, whose breath could engulf anything, brooded Issei. Well, at least it is a start. My father told me he was going to train me to use my holy lightning powers when he feels I'm ready. Other than that, I've helped my mother cleaning around the shrine and attended school. Akeno responded. Is it fun going to school? Asked Issei curiously. Akeno thought about it before answering. It's okay. I spend the day playing games with other kids. Sometimes they take us out to different places like the amusement park or even the zoo. Akeno continued to talk about all the different things she did in school, to which Issei listened very intently. Did you make many friends? He asked. Although at the mention of friends, he became a bit depressed, recalling how every kid he met shunned him and wanted nothing to do with him. Akeno, not noticing his inner turmoil, simply answered his query. I guess I did. Everyone was really nice to me and we all played together, so I guess it does make us friends, but she stopped to look at Issei and smiled. I think you would be my best friend, she said as Issei became a bit flustered at the mention of it. Really? But why, we've only recently met and you spent a lot more time with them than me, he asked, clearly not understanding why she would consider someone she just recently met as her best friend. I guess it's because, with you, I can show you who I really am. My parents always told me that I could not reveal who I am to others, even though I do not understand why. Anyways, with you I don't need to hide my wings and can just be myself. Thank you, he answered as they continued enjoying their day. Eventually, evening came and it was time to return home. Ophis and Great Red came out to get Issei and head home. Barakiel and Shuri followed them to say farewell and to get their own daughter. Issei, it's time to go. Ophis called out to her son. Oh, already? Can't we stay for a bit more? Issei pleaded with his mom, but she would not relent. Unfortunately not, Issei. It is getting very late, so it is time to return home. Issei started pouting at his mom's answer, to which everyone thought he looked absolutely adorable. Shuri stepped in. Yufufu, you know you can come by any time you want. We would be pleased to have you here and I'm sure Akeno would love to spend more time with you. She told Issei, giving both him and Akeno a wink, to which they both blushed. Barakiel also added, yes, as my wife mentioned, we would be honored if you would come back. Despite starting off on the wrong foot, we had a great time today and we hope you did as well. Great Red followed by Ophis nodded, accepting what he said. Indeed, although at first I did not know what would happen, we had a marvelous time with you both and we hope to get along very well, Great Red said with a smile on his face, and he shook Barakiel's hand. At least, they offer better company than you, mocked Ophis, to which everyone started giggling at her joke. Before Great Red could defend himself, Issei interrupted. Yes, this is so awesome. Thank you. Issei started jumping up and down, clearly illustrating how happy he was that his time with his first friend is not over. Both parents couldn't help but giggle at Issei's antics, making him look absolutely adorable. After calming down, he went over to Akeno to say his farewell. It looks like I have to go. I had an amazing time with you today, Akeno, and I hope we can spend more time together. Yes, I also had an amazing time with you and I hope you come visit soon. She responded as she gave him a hug, which he reciprocated. After separating, they all bid each other good night as Ophis, Great Red and Issei returned home to rest. After they left, Shuri looked towards her daughter with a small grin. Oh my, it seems somebody has caught your fancy, Akeno. Giving her a small wink, to which Akeno started blushing. Mom, it's not like that, we are just friends, she shouted, although a small part of her did not seem to agree with that thought. Both Shuri and Barakiel just laughed at their daughter's reaction as they too went back into their home as the curtain fell on yet another day. 2 years later. 2 years have gone by since then, and their friendship became stronger than ever. In fact, they both developed a crush towards one another, yet were oblivious of each other's feelings, yet they were perfectly happy spending time with one another as much as possible. Their parents, however, were well aware of the feelings shared between them and were very happy for them. Ophis and Great Red could see the joy in Issei's expression every time he spent time with Akeno. They wished for nothing more than Issei's happiness and are ecstatic to see him growing up so well. The same could be said for Barakiel and Shuri. They were absolutely overjoyed that she found someone she could be herself with and not hide her identity. They could see the smile she gives him as well the few blushes she exudes whenever he compliments her over anything. Both parents could tell that each of them had a crush over the other and it was only a matter of time before they got together. The biggest change that occurred during this time frame was that Ophis and Great Red have finally cemented their relationship as mates. Throughout the years, Great Red has seen so many new sides of Ophis that he never even dreamed even existed, and yet little by little, he started to fall in love with her. Ophis, on the other hand, saw that there is more to the Apocalypse Dragon than she had thought. Seeing him taking things seriously with Issei, she slowly started gaining respect for the dragon and eventually stopped calling him an idiot. Eventually those feelings of respect grew into feelings of love. One day, Great Red gathered the courage and admitted his feelings for Ophis and was extremely surprised when she reciprocated them, which marked the beginning of their relationship as mates. Of course, to Issei being so young, nothing really has changed since they were still his mother and father and didn't see any problems with it. Both of them found it hilarious when Shuri and Barakiel found out that they weren't married despite having a child. Nevertheless, that did not stop Shuri from suggesting that they hold a wedding for their union, even if it is just amongst themselves. Both dragons tried to argue with her that becoming mates is different than humans and there is no need for any ceremony. But, after her never-ending perseverance, they finally succumbed to her decision and decided to hold a small ceremony at the shrine amongst themselves, with Akeno being the flower girl, while Issei brought their rings. In the end, it was a special day, and they thanked Shuri for organizing it, which she was very happy to do for her friends. Back to the present day, Issei and Akeno were taking a trip to the zoo alongside Barakiel and Shuri to enjoy their day before they head back to the shrine, where both families will have supper together. As they were looking around, Akeno told Issei, "It's a shame your parents could not join us." Issei smiled at her and replied, "Yeah, however that could not be helped. You remember what happened last time we all came together. The last time, they all visited the zoo, the moment both dragon gods entered the area, all animals immediately went and hid in their habitats. No one understood what had happened, but the animals were incredibly frightened by the very presence of both dragons, which caused their flight instincts to pick up and immediately retreated in their homes." He could still recall the funny outburst his dad had. Flashback. In front of the lion's den, his dad tried to get the lions to come out of hiding. "You are supposed to be the king of the jungle, yet you are all acting like a bunch of scaredy cats. Get the hell out of there and show some of that lion's pride, you pussy." In the background, all you could hear was the lion's frightened whimpers as Great Red kept insulting every animal to come out. Nonetheless, Issei was very sad he could not see any animals, and his parents were sad that they were the cause of it. They told him that he should go another time with Akeno and her family without them, so he could have a fun time. End of flashback. As Issei was going down memory lanes, Akeno poked him, interrupting his thoughts and bringing him back to reality. "Let's go pet the baby bunnies in the pen, they are absolutely adorable." Without waiting for his approval, Akeno bolted towards the bunny pen, which made Issei laugh at how excited she was. Looking back, he saw that even her parents were giggling at their daughter's excitement, taking pictures to commemorate the day. They even took pictures of Issei in order to send them to his parents, as they could be here to enjoy the day with them. Making his way towards her, he saw her petting a few baby bunnies sporting a beautiful smile, which caused him to blush a bit. When he tried to pet the bunnies, however, he saw them jerk away from him as if frightened by his touch. Although saddened from this, he understood that from their perspective, he cannot be seen as anything else but a monster, which is something he cannot change no matter what. Akeno, seeing his grief, decided to try and help alleviate the issue. She suddenly grabbed his hand, greatly surprising Issei, who turned to face her, as if asking what's going on. She simply nodded, still wearing that comforting smile on her face, as she slowly brought his hand towards the baby bunny she was petting. Seeing the same reaction occur, she gently caressed the bunny's head, trying to calm it down. "Don't worry, he isn't going to hurt you. Issei is a gentle guy and would not do anything to harm you. There. Seeing the bunny calming down, she slowly brought it towards his palm. Issei was very nervous, although appreciative of what Akeno was doing, thought that it would be a useless endeavor. The bunny started sniffing the palm of Issei's hand, as if trying to judge whether or not it was safe. Eventually, to Issei's surprise, the bunny made his way towards Issei's hand. Issei was honestly blown away by what happened as he ever so gently petted the bunny, hoping not to scare it away. There you see, they just needed to see that you are a gentle person and they would no longer be afraid. Akeno told him. Issei looked towards her with the brightest smile she had ever seen him possess. Thank you so much, Akeno. He told her as she also gave him a smile. As they were gazing at one another, they heard some clicking sounds in the background. Click click click. They both turned around to see what was going on, only to see Shuri and Barakiel with smirks on their faces taking pictures of them. It seems we interrupted our daughter's moment with Issei. Please, don't mind us and keep going, Shuri told them, still keeping her smirk while winking at Akeno. Both Issei and Akeno cheeks quickly turned crimson as Akeno shouted. Mom. Both parents just laughed at their daughter's reaction as they continued visiting all the different animals in the zoo. It was especially funny when Issei started a random stare down with the Komodo dragon, which Barakiel took pictures of to send to his parents. When Akeno asked him why he was doing it, he answered that he didn't really know why, but felt that he would somehow lose if he was the first to look away. Eventually, their visit came to an end and it was time to go back to the shrine. Overall, Issei had a wonderful time which was shared by Akeno and her family, and he could not wait to tell his parents about it. Making their way towards the shrine, they met up with Great Red in Ophis, who surprisingly was dressed up for the occasion wearing a beautiful black dress which made her look absolutely stunning. That Barakiel could not help but stare at her for a moment, which caused him to get a slap on the back of the head by his wife, who whispered in his ear, "I'll punish you later, you fufu," causing him a shiver down his spine in both fear and excitement. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived at their destination. Shuri quickly began preparations for dinner with Barakiel helping her out. Seeing that it was going to take time before supper was ready, Ophis called out to the kids. Issei, why don't you take Akeno outside to play while we prepare dinner? Just be sure to be back in around 1 hour. Dinner should be ready by then. Okay mom, where would you like to go, Akeno? Issei asked her. How about we go to the park? It has been a while since we went there, she answered him. Issei nodded and they went on their way. Arriving at the park, they noticed that they were the only ones there, which is normal, considering that no parents would let their kids out so late into the evening, but all this meant is that they had the entire playground for themselves. As they were playing, they started making idle conversation to pass the time. I aced my last quiz in Japanese. My parents were so happy that they posted it on our fridge. It's a bit embarrassing how they over-exaggerate almost everything I do, she told him as she scratched the back of her head. Wow, you are as smart as you are pretty, he said so innocently, not realizing the atomic blush it caused Akeno, who staggered in her response. Thanks, Issei. Recompassing herself, she continued, how about you, has anything interesting happened? Not really. My dad has been making me work out to enhance my physical strength, even though I wanted to learn new skills. His tone turned into pouting as he continued, but dad said that I am still way too young, and my body is still too weak to be able to withstand the power sleeping within me. It's not fair, I wanted to be able to do cool moves that my parents can do. He started waving his hands, everything showing how frustrated he was, but all that did was make him look absolutely adorable to Akeno, who simply giggled. Your reaction is absolutely adorable, Issei kun, emphasizing his name as she gave him a wink, causing his to blush this time, but still managed to continue the conversation. Also, I did ask my parents if they would allow me to attend school, so I could be able to experience what you do, but they are still reluctant for me to go. I think I can understand the reason they do not want you to go. They are scared that you will re-experience what happened in the past, and they do not want you to feel hurt due to their actions, Akeno stated as Issei remembered the past where everyone treated him like a plague, wanting nothing more to do with him, which did make him feel extremely sad. That is not something he wants to experience ever again, and yet he looked towards Akeno and smiled at her. I'm very grateful to them for thinking about my well-being, but I am a dragon, and I must keep moving forward. I cannot let my past define my future, so I will face any obstacle head-on, and besides I have you as my best friend, which makes me very happy, so even if I cannot make any other friends or they avoid me, I am content with what I have, he told her with absolute certainty. Once again causing Akeno's cheeks to turn crimson. All of a sudden, before she could properly answer him, Issei's instinct suddenly warned him of danger, as the sky suddenly turned purple, and all presence of any humans apart from Akeno were gone. A barrier has been erected around them, and he knew this could not be anything good. What is going on? Akeno asked worriedly. Akeno, get behind me and stay close to me. Akeno, understanding the severity of the situation, simply nodded and positioned herself behind him, although was still a bit frightened by the situation, which Issei could not blame her for as he too was a bit scared. Then, from all around them, multiple people came out from the bushes and began surrounding both of them. It didn't take a genius to figure out that they were responsible for trapping them in this barrier. Issei was trying his best to remain calm and analyze the present situation at hand. He tried to sense who these beings were as they did not feel like humans, but his question was answered when from their back spawned bat-like scaly wings, and this helped Issei determine which species they were a part of. They were devils. Despite the desperate situation, Issei was trying to find some way to help them escape this predicament they were in. With a bit of luck, he should be able to force his way out. Despite being a child himself and not having much training, he was the son of 2 dragon gods, therefore possesses a great deal of strength rivaling even high-class devils according to his parents. However, this was only possible if he were by himself. Unlike him, Akeno was not taught much about her dormant powers yet by her parents, and thus was not strong enough to deal with these enemies. At best, she might be able to deal fatal damage to any 2-winged devil, due to their weakness to her holy lightning. However, her power does not currently possess the strength to deal with multiple enemies. The even worst was that he could see many 4-winged devils as well as a few 6-winged devils, which does not bode well for them. As he was trying to formulate any plan of escape, one of the devils made his way towards them. His back displayed 8 wings, which would most likely make him the leader of this group of misfits. Greetings to you, spawn of Ophis, my name is Valperpayman, pleasure to make your acquaintance. With a graceful bow, the leader of the devils, now known as Valperpayman, introduced himself to Issei. This only served to cause even greater unrest to Issei. How do they know who I am? Was the thought currently going through his mind. It was less the fact that they knew his name, but rather that they knew that Ophis was his mother. As far as he knows, his parents did everything in their power to ensure that his existence was kept a secret from everyone. The only people that know of him are Akeno and her family, but other than them, it should have been impossible for anyone else, much less beings from the supernatural world, to know of his identity. He became very frightened not only for his safety, but also for Akeno's. He tried to contact his parents via magic as he was taught once, but, no matter what, he was not able to connect through. Even Akeno tried using her phone but to no avail. Valper, seeing what they were doing, interjected. I'm afraid that your efforts are futile. The barrier surrounding us will prevent any form of communication with the outside world. We cannot let that mother of yours intervene with our plans now, can we? Now, I will offer this only once, surrender quietly and come with us. You are a priority target and I would rather like to take in one piece, boy. What is it that you want? He tried asking them to buy as much time as he could. It is none of your business, boy, but let's just say that the Ouroboros dragon owes us something and we have come to collect it with a little bit of help from you. So, last chance, surrender now or we will take you by force. Issei understood that his indirect indication that they wanted to use him to get what they wanted from his mother, which angered him greatly. I'll take your silent treatment as a no. Not very smart of you, but then again, what can you expect from a little brat? He then begun to issue orders to his subordinates. Men, please teach our junior here the error of his ways and get rid of the fallen angel scum behind him. As the devils finished surrounding them, Issei was evaluating his options. Issei really wanted to change into his dragon form as it would greatly increase his chances of winning, but unfortunately could not do so for 2 reasons. 1. His transformation, unlike his parents, requires time and concentration to perform, which will leave him vulnerable for the devils to dispatch him, and although his body is naturally tough thanks to being a dragon, he could not take the risk. The second reason being Akeno's safety. When he enters his dragon form, a massive shockwave of power erupts from his being which would most certainly hurt, if not outright kill her, due to their proximity. Thus, he resolved himself to fight without entering his strongest state. However, it does not mean he is entirely helpless. With a bit of training, his mother and father taught him how to transform parts of his body into a dragon, and this, he could do instantaneously after a lot of practice. His form slowly began to shift as his arms grew dark crimson scales and turned into claws, his legs went through the same metamorphosis, and, from his back, spawned 2 large dragon wings. Finally, his eyes turned into slits with his body leaking aura all around him, signaling that he was ready for battle. Normally, he would also grow a tail, however, due to a small mishap with his father, he seldom wishes to bring it out. During one of his physical training sessions with Great Red, his father took things a bit too far when Issei dodged his strike, only to grab his tail and literally bash him from side to side, thus, accidentally, giving Issei a mental trauma regarding the use of his tail. Although this did prompt Ophis to give Great Red the biggest beatdown of his life he ever experienced. Anyways, although the chances of something like that occurring here is very small, he did not want to risk it. The more limbs he has to worry about, the less effective he will be able to concentrate in battle. A few of the devils, mainly the weaker one, were a bit frightened by the sight, but reminded themselves that they were still dealing with a child. One overeager devil wanted to get this over with and charged towards Issei with a sword in hand. Before his superior could warn him, Issei intercepted him with a burst of speed unheard of for a 7-year-old child and sent a haymaker towards the devil's stomach, breaking his ribs and causing him to spurt blood and spit as he was sent flying backwards, landing on another unfortunate devil and losing consciousness. Many were surprised by the power displayed by Issei and became hesitant to attack after that. "You fools, even if he is a child, do not forget that he is the spawn of a dragon god," Valper stated. He then began to issue orders to everyone. "Make sure not to attack him individually. As you've seen, he is still very strong despite being a child. The low-class devils should focus on supporting them whenever you can. We must not fail this mission. Understood?" "Yes sir," a collective shout was heard, and that was the signal for the start of the battle, as two devils went to flank Issei. One came from his left and the other from the right. Under normal circumstances, a battle of this magnitude would be impossible for Issei, however he possessed one advantage over his adversaries, and that is his natural-born instincts as a dragon. His father and mother had always told him to rely on his instincts in battle because it is what makes dragons truly fearsome to deal with. They have never lied to him to this day, so he will not start now, considering he is literally fighting for his life. Letting his instincts guide him, he dodged the first incoming attack by shifting to the side and using the momentum spun around to deliver a roundhouse kick to the devil's face, which instantaneously knocked him unconscious. He then unleashed a fire breath towards the other devil, reducing him to ash. Seeing this, several devils began shooting demonic projectiles trying to defeat him using long-range attacks. However, Issei used his wings to shield him as the projectiles hit him, leaving barely any scratches. While Issei was focused on defending from the long-range assault, another devil tried to use this to his advantage to blindside him and attack him, only to be hit by a lightning bolt, stunning him, courtesy of Akeno. This gave enough time for Issei to recognize the situation and immediately punched him, blasting him a far distance away. He looked over to Akeno to thank her. "Thanks for the save, Akeno," he smiled to her. "Anytime, Issei," she replied as she smiled back to him as both refocused on their enemies. Valper was frustrated that this was taking way longer than it should have as he barked even more orders. "What the hell are you all doing? Have you all forgotten that dragons are highly resistant to magic, so use them only to provide support while melee attackers get into position? I do not want to see any more screw, or I will personally deal with any incompetence. And someone get rid of that disgusting fallen angel." The battle resumed as the devil followed their orders. Although Valper was an evil bastard, you could tell he was an experienced commander who was used to battle. The first wave of devils started charging at both of them. Issei placed himself in front of Akeno to protect her, while she will try to provide as much support as she could with her holy powers. The devil takes flight to attack him from above as he dives towards him, while another stronger devil simultaneously attacks him with a burst of speed from the side, thrusting a demonic-empowered fist towards Issei. Surprised by the speed displayed, Issei had no choice but to brace himself and cross his arms, taking the empowered strike with his body, making him slide a few feet away from his original position, showing how strong the strike was. Another devil shot a demonic beam towards Issei, hoping to distract him from his ally assault, but the attack was intercepted by Akeno's holy lighting. But the beam dealt with, Issei was able to quickly shift his focus to the incoming assault from above. Using his wings as a barrier, he was able to deflect the incoming attack to his side, causing an opening in the devil's defense and striking him to the ground. While Issei was preoccupied, a few devils tried to bypass Issei in order to strike Akeno, but even though her lighting was not strong, it was enough to delay them, while Issei, having emerged from the assault unscathed, finished them off with either his fire or his physical strength. Multiple attackers soon launched themselves towards him. The first swung in a wide arc towards Issei's right section, causing Issei to dodge to his left, where the other one was lying in wait, and quickly thrust his blade towards Issei's chest, but in a remarkable display of acrobatics, was able to leap over him and, this time, flying into the air on his dragon wings, came sailing down, crashing the devil into the ground, causing a small crater to appear underneath him. All of a sudden, his instincts warned him of impending danger, as he jumped from his spot in time to dodge a six-winged devil, who almost managed to cleave him in half. While in the air, he launched his breath, killing a few supporters, while managing to critically injure the six-winged devil. He landed on the ground only to find himself bombarded with more projectiles, causing him to focus on defense. Suddenly, in the brief opening caused by the devils, Valper quickly attacked Issei from his blind spot, which separated him from Akeno. Not even his instincts were fast enough to warn him in time as he landed a few feet away with his side bleeding a bit. Valper smirked and taunted Issei. "Although you possess the power of a dragon god, it is useless if you do not know how to utilize it in combat, so be a good boy and submit already, and you will not get hurt much." He laughed a bit while multiple four-winged devils went forth to continue the assault on Issei, not allowing him even a moment to breathe. At that moment, he heard Akeno shriek, quickly turning his attention to her. Amity silently cursed himself for not realizing that he had been separated from Akeno, which was most likely Valper's plan considering the big grin on his face. His worst fear is coming true. Without him bearing the brunt of the assaults, Akeno became vulnerable. she is simply not strong enough to deal with many enemies by herself. Her lighting might make the lesser devils worry, but the stronger ones would barely feel a thing, as shown by Valper moments ago. Taking his shot, a two-winged devil shot a projectile towards her which luckily missed, hitting just in front of her, but still caused her to fall backwards, which caused the shriek he heard before. Seeing her fall, the devil quickly drew his sword and charged towards her. Fortunately, she was able to react in time and gather her lighting and shot the devil, who could not dodge due to his charge and was hit point blank and reduced to ash. No sooner did he start breathing a sigh of relief that she was able to deal with the enemy, panic took hold of his heart as, to his despair, he noticed another devil attacking from Akeno's blind spot with a sword in hand, ready to decapitate her head. Even worse, he still had to deal with multiple enemies coming towards him. He had to find a way to quickly get rid of them in order to be able to save Akeno. One of the assailants shot several projectiles towards him as the other two rushed him, aiming to take him down. Normally, he would simply dodge them, but since he was pressed for time, he decided to try something else. When the shots were about, he hit him, he used his wings to parry and redirect the shots back towards one of the attackers. It worked like a charm as the attacker that got hit was killed, and it also destabilized the other one that was charging him. He quickly took action as Issei took the devil's arm and swung him over his shoulder towards the ranged attacker, stunning both of them for a moment, but that was all he really wanted. Using his momentum he gained from his movement, he launched himself towards Akeno, praying that he would make it in time. However, his natural instincts could tell of the inevitable conclusion he tried so very hard to deny. He knew that he wasn't going to make it to her in time. Everything starting appearing in slow motion as his mind tried to come up with any ideas to save Akeno. What do I do, something, anything, or Akeno-chan will die. Despair was setting in when he saw that he wasn't going to make it. Akienu, he screamed when all of a sudden, his body seemed to move at lightning speed and he suddenly found himself in back of Akeno, just as the devil was about to decapitate her. He did not know how he got here, but he had no time to question this miracle as he crossed his wings to shield him and Akeno from the blow. When the sword hit, it snapped into pieces, not being able to pierce through his thick scales. How did he was all the devil managed to say before Issei, taking advantage of his blunder, struck a blow sending him soaring towards a tree, saving Akeno in the process, who looked behind her just in time to notice him save her. "Thank you, Issei," she said. "No problem, just try to be careful of your surroundings," he said, to which she nodded. Issei noticed that she was starting to breath heavily, signaling how tired she was becoming, which makes sense since unlike him, who possessed an immense amount of energy, she had never really experienced any type of extreme training, much less a fight, so the situation was getting worse for them both. Eventually, even he will run out of stamina and they will become easy picking for the devils. The previous ability he used, although unknown, used quite a bit of stamina to use. He tried to call out whatever power he used to save Akeno, but it didn't work, so he thought it might have been a one-time thing. "Well now, you are just full of surprises, aren't you?" Valper exclaimed, not fully understanding how the little runt managed to intercept the attack. It seemed as though he teleported, but it did not appear that way. Anyways, he needed to finish this as soon as possible, otherwise Beelzebub would have his head. He already lost several devils to mere children, which is something that will greatly displease Shalba, so he had to make his objective a success or suffer his wrath. "It seems I will have to deal with this myself." Making his decision, Valper stormed towards Issei, who noticed him and, this time, was ready to intercept him. Issei and Valper started to exchange blows with one another. Although Valper had more battle experience than Issei, his instincts were able to aid him in dodging the devil's blows. Unfortunately, there are times that Valper's blows do hit Issei, as although his instincts can keep up with his enemy, his body has yet to develop to match his instincts. Still, his defenses managed to reduce the damage dealt by Valper whenever he landed a hit, thanks to his scales. The natural tough defense of a dragon's body is very helpful. Issei rushed forwards and sent a right hook towards Valper's face, but, seeing the attack coming, Valper simply swayed his body back a bit to dodge the attack. Issei realized too late the mistake he made, because now his attack left him vulnerable, as Valper took full advantage of and counter-attacked him with a punch enhanced with demonic energy straight to the face, prompting a cry of pain from Issei as blood trickled down his, while sending him flying across the field. Thankfully, he utilized his wings to regain his balance and managed to land right beside Akeno, who used her lightning to dispatch a two-winged devil who got too close. He also blocked a demonic shot that was aimed at her by crossing his arm and taking the hit for her, although it did nothing but scratch him. "Are you okay, Akeno?" he asked her without looking at her, always keeping his eyes on the enemy without dropping his guard, especially Valper. "Well now, it seems you are incredibly persistent. Despite being a child, you have managed to deal quite a hefty amount of damage here, even dispatching some of the lower level devils. In the future, you would have become quite a menace. Yet, you are really starting to drive my patience, you little brat. In fact, this has gone on for long enough. Originally, we were planning to retrieve you in one piece, but so long as you are alive, our objective will be met, so it is time to end this. Valper started forming sphere of demonic energy between his hands. Issei could tell that he was gathering an immense amount of demonic energy. Normally, an attack like this would kill a child such as yourself, but your natural defenses will keep you alive, although barely, which is more than I can say for that fallen angel behind you. This is the end as he shot a demonic blast towards them. Issei quickly got in front of Akeno and gathered as much power as he could in the bits of his stomach and launched his very own dragon's roar as an orange wave of fire burst forth. Both attacks collided in the center and started pushing against one another, trying to dominate the other. The stalemate did not last long as Valper's attack was slowly pushing back Issei's attack. Issei tried to output more power into his attack, yet it seemed to me his current limit. His mind recalled his earlier training with his parents. Flashback. Issei was practicing in the dimensional gap with his father to utilize his breath attack. He gathered as much power as possible in the center of his stomach and then expelled the flame outwards. Unfortunately, the results were unsatisfactory for Issei. While his dad praised him to be able to generate a roar that could annihilate any four-winged devil, fallen angel or angel, especially for a youngling of only 7 years of age, Issei felt his attack lacking as it did not give the impact he saw his parents' breath do. What am I doing wrong, Dad? I'm doing exactly as you told me, yet my own power is not doing what I wanted. He started complaining to his dad, which he found absolutely adorable. He and Ophis really enjoy whenever Issei holds a temper tantrum, although they would never tell him that, so he simply chuckled at his son's display. I want to be as cool and strong as you guys in order to make you proud, Issei said. I understand, Issei, but what you are talking about is more along the lines of motivation. You must find something worth treasuring with your entire being. Dragons are beings of fearsome might, especially when protecting that which they hold dear. It can be literally anything, my son. For Tannen, it is the preservation of the dragon's race. For the heavenly dragons Drake and Albion, it was their rivalry to one another. For Fafnir, it is the collection of treasures he collected over the centuries. Hell, even the lust for battle as seen with the evil dragons, are the source of their almighty strength. Each one of them have something that they would dedicate their entire being to. You just need to figure out what it is. Your mother and I cannot help you in that regard. This is your journey, your life, and will be up to you to figure out what you want to be. And for the record, Issei, no matter what type of dragon you wish to become or how powerful you are, know that Ophis and I will always, for all eternity, be proud of you, because our treasure, that which we hold dearest, is and always has been you. Your father is absolutely right about that, Issei. No matter what you do, we will always love you because you are our son, Ophis added as she formed a wonderful smile towards him. This caused Issei to cry a bit as he went and hugged his parents, so happy to have their support and love no matter what. Alright, enough of this happy display, let's continue training, Great Red said, which caused everyone to chuckle a bit before Issei responded with, yes. End of flashback. Recalling his father's words, he started thinking. What kind of dragon do I want to be, he asked himself. However, no matter what his decision would not chance from the answer he gave his father. He wants to be as strong and majestic like his father, graceful, loving like his mother. His parents are and will always be his idols regarding what kind of awesome and cool looking dragon he wants to be. What do I treasure most? His mind wandered to the people who were close to him. His mother and father, Auntie Shuri and Uncle Barakiel, especially Akeno. Valper's blast was inching closer and closer. I want to protect those I love. All of a sudden, he felt a surge of power gush from his being as his fire suddenly increased in both intensity and size. In addition, the color of the fire changed from an orange hue to dark crimson, just like his scales. His newfound strength slowly began to overpower Valper's attack. Seeing this sudden reversal, Valper became frustrated since he held the advantage just a moment ago. What the hell is happening? Where did this surge of power come from? He screamed as he tried to add even more power to his attack, however it seemed to have no effect. His allies tried adding their own power to aid him, however, the moment their attack came close to Issei fire, they evaporated from the sheer intensity of it. No, this cannot be. I refuse to be defeated by a mere infant. I will not be defeated here, you damn monster. He tried everything he could, but nothing mattered as his blast quickly dissipated as Issei breath attack enveloped Valper. You dragon, he cursed as he took his last breath of life. Huge explosions followed wherever his breath traveled, causing a massive amount of smoke. After the dust cleared, Issei sees that his breath attack scorched the leader, as well as any unfortunate devil caught in its way to ashes. The force of his attack was also powerful enough to destroy part of the barrier that surrounded them. The remaining devils could not believe their eyes at the destruction caused by the boy. The power he demonstrated was enough to destroy their leader with little resistance, and he was powerful enough to have 4 pairs of wings. What a monster was what was going through each of their minds as their bodies shook in fear at the overwhelming might displayed in front of them. Seeing that his breath attack destroyed many devils including the leader, his fatigue suddenly came back in full force. He used every last drop of power he could muster and finally collapsed on the floor as his consciousness was leaving him. Before succumbing to it, he was able to hear Akeno screaming his name. When Issei woke up, he found himself in a room that was not his, but looking at his surrounding recognized as the guest room located in Akeno's home. When he tried to get up, he felt a bit of weight on his hand, so he turned his attention to it, only to find that Akeno was located near him, grasping his hand for dear life, and he noticed that she was asleep next to him. Trying to recall what had happened, his memories of the events that transpired slowly resurfaced as he remembered what had happened. A group of devils suddenly appeared out of nowhere with the goal of kidnapping him for reasons he had no idea. They tried to kill Akeno, but he somehow found the strength needed to protect her and finally managed to master his fire breath, which annihilated all the remaining devils, including the 10-winged devil leader. But then, his memory became a blue, so he guessed he must have collapsed at that moment. He suddenly felt Akeno stir in her slept, meaning that she was about to wake up, and sure enough her eyelids slowly opened revealing her beautiful violet eyes. Upon seeing Issei awake, she quickly embraced him, encasing his head into her decent developed chest, for a 7-year-old girl. The perks of being born part fallen. She started sobbing, so thankful that he was awake. Thank God, you are right, Issei. I was so worried when I saw you collapse. I thought that you died. She said as tears poured out of her eyes. Seeing this, he embraced her, trying to soothe her as he rubbed her back. I'm okay, Akeno-chan, sorry for making you worry so much. He tried his best to reassure her as he continued. Also, are you okay? I remembered that those bastards injured you, and I want to make sure you are alright. Slowly getting out of his embrace and staring him right in the eyes, she immediately replied. You idiot, you were injured way worse than I was taking on those devils, and yet here you are worrying about me instead of yourself. Issei could tell from her voice that she was extremely worried about him, which made him feel sad at causing her to feel this way. He used his thumbs to wipe away her tears. You're my best friend, Akeno-chan, so, of course I am going to worry about your safety. I am just glad that I was able to protect you. He told her as he gave her a smile showing he meant every word of it. His sincerity caused her to blush as she dove her head back in his chest and enjoyed his embrace. Eventually they separated and Issei asked her. Can you tell me what happened after I lost consciousness, since I'm guessing a bit happened, considering that I know I was not able to finish them all, he asked her, to which she nodded as she retold him what happened after he passed out. Akeno's perspective from a few hours ago. After Issei launched his devastating breath, Akeno marveled at the power her best friend unleashed. Once again, she was reminded of how strong Issei was compared to her. Here she was, barely able to defeat a 2-winged angel, and yet he managed to deal critical damage to most if not all of them, and even managed to defeat their leader as well as many others with his last attack. However, her wonder was cut short as she saw Issei fall. Issei, she screamed with all her might, quickly running towards him fearing for the worst. She was extremely worried as she picked him up and checked to see if he was still breathing. To her relief, she saw his chest rising slowly, showing that he simply fell unconscious from the resulting attack. It shows how he placed every ounce of power he could into his attack. She wanted to quickly get back home and have his wounds checked out, however, reality had other ideas. From the smoke, the remaining devils who survived the blast came out into the open, also looking at the devastation caused by their target, still not believing what is in front of their very eyes. Holy shit, this brat is a monster. One of them shouted, although the thought was reciprocated by every single remaining survivor. I know, I cannot believe a mere brat was able to defeat so many of us, including Payman-sama. We severely underestimated the brat, despite knowing that he is Ophis spawn, one of the remaining 6-winged devils said, clearly enraged at the state they were reduced to, but once he saw Issei unconscious, his attitude did a full 18, as a smirk appeared on his face. Well, it seems the monster's finally hit his limit. I have to admit, for a moment, I did not believe we would survive this ordeal, but it seems Lady Luck favors us today. We may have lost almost half of our group including our leader, but it seems we will be able to complete our objective here, he said as he slowly made his way towards Issei. Seeing this, Akeno immediately got in front of Issei and shouted. I will not let you touch him. Seeing this, the 6-winged devil started laughing, which was accompanied by his companion's laughter. My, for a fallen angel weakling, you are certainly very brave. Facing towards her with the same awful smirk, he wears brave yet also extremely foolish. How do you expect to stop us? Unlike that monster laying there, you are very weak. Seeing him make his way towards them, Akeno gathered whatever remaining magic she could and shot it towards the approaching devil. As holy lightning was making its way towards him, he simply snuffed, and to prove his earlier point, he simply waved his hand, and that was all that was required to dispel the attack which frightened Akeno. You see, you cannot do anything to stop us. Well, it's true that the holy attribute is, in fact, our biggest weakness. Your level of power is much too weak to be able to damage a four-winged devil, let alone myself who is even stronger. As I just demonstrated, your attack was not even able to phase me. Even if I let your attack hit me, it would not even have counted on the level of a mosquito bite. Anyways, this shit has taken far too long in my opinion. We will take the bye and he will pay for what he did to us. Looking at her, he suddenly got a flash of inspiration on how to torment the boy. Oh, I just got an excellent idea to make him suffer. It seems the abomination had cared for you very much considering how far he went to protect you from harm. How about this? I will make sure that when he wakes up, the first thing he will see is your head on a spike. Ahahaha, oh, I cannot wait to see the look of despair he will have when he realizes that he failed to protect anything and his struggles were all useless. What a pleasant sight that will be. Aren't I right, boys? He asked his comrades who all nodded and even laughed at his suffering, which disgusted Akeno to her very core, yet she could do nothing but let out a few tears, powerless to do anything. Her look of despair brought immeasurable joy to the six-winged devil as he started gathering a lot of demonic power in his hand and pointed it towards them. Time to die, fallen angel. He said as he shot the blast of demonic power at them. Knowing her end was in sight, she simply embraced Issei as she closed her eyes waiting for her inevitable demise. All of a sudden, the barrier surrounding them broke apart as an immense amount of holy lighting intercepted the demonic energy, quickly dispelling it as it made contact with it. Akeno opened her eyes to see what happened and to her relief saw her father bathed in holy lightning standing in front of them. However, this time she bore witness to a side of her father that she had never seen. In front of her stood a very enraged Barakiel glaring furiously at the devils. How dare you shits harm my daughter? He shouted as he released a charge of holy lightning towards the devils, and unlike his daughter's attack, his attack obliterated from existence any devils that stood in its range. Seeing a fallen angel cadre make his appearance caused the devils to jerk away in fear, knowing they stood no chance against him. Yet, their fear was taken a notch higher when they saw who stepped forward behind Barakiel. Making their way forward was an enraged Ophis followed by Great Red. The power radiating from them was immeasurable and caused many devils to pee in their pants, knowing who stood before them. Luckily or unluckily, they did not recognize that the man standing before them was Great Red. If they did, they most likely would have died from shock the instant they saw both dragon gods enter their view. Oh shit, it's Ophis, everyone retreat now. One of them shouted with extreme fear. However, before they could take one step, an overwhelming amount of killing intent was directed towards which rendered them immobile. Even Barakiel was flinching at their power, even though their rage was not directed towards him. None of you vermin are going anywhere. Stated Great Red. He motioned his hand upwards as he made a newly constructed barrier around them for multiple reasons. The first, being the obvious one, to prevent any of the accursed devils to escape from them. They have harmed his son and they will regret it very painfully. The second reason is to be able to contain the release of power that is emanating from both dragon gods, since they are beyond enraged at this point in time, and it was taking every single fiber of their being to keep their powers from exploding outwards and destroying the entire country of Japan and all its residents. In the supernatural world, there was one fact that every supernatural being agreed upon, and that is to never cause a dragon's outrage lest you live to see another day. Dragons have always one of the strongest, if not the strongest species to ever roam the world. It is the reason why many have feared them and even hunted them down. However, they become the most dangerous creatures when angered. Even a low-level dragon, when outraged, can cause widespread destruction. Heck, it took the three factions, including God and the original four devil kings, to make a temporary truce amongst themselves, to deal with the two enraged heavenly dragons Albion and Drake, and even though they succeeded, hundreds of thousands of people died in the conflict. This illustrated to the entire world that you do not mess with an angry dragon, because if you do you may not live to see another day. Angering the dragon gods is something no faction, even the Hindu faction, would ever dare to attempt lest they face extinction. These devils were about to learn the hard way what it means to anger not one, but both dragon gods. What happened next was not a battle, but rather a one-sided slaughter, as they all completely obliterated all of them from the phase of existence. Even the surrounding park vanished, leaving only destruction and ruin in its wake. Many of the devils were tortured to death by Ophis as she exploded each of their limbs, one by one, making sure to make their death as excruciating as possible before death embraced them. Great Red simply evaporated each one of them. He did not care to maim or torture them. All he cared about was to make them pay for they did to his son, and like insects, he would simply crush them. In the end, not a single devil remained in sight. It is finished. Great Red said stoically as he looked at the surrounding destruction his wife and him caused, with a little bit of help from Brachial Pilol. Don't you think you overdid it a little? Brachial asked, looking at the ruined scenery in front of him. Sorry my friend, but we needed to let out a bit of steam, and you know as well as I that they deserved every bit of it for what they did to our children. He answered back at him. They deserved far worse than that, Ophis added angrily, still not over the fact that her little Issei was harmed. Great Red walked next to her and brought his hand near her waist and embraced her, which managed to calm her down a bit. You're right. We should fix this place before heading home. Leave that to me, as Great Red snapped his fingers, and the damage to the park and its surroundings immediately disappeared as everything returned to normal. One would never guess an apocalyptic massacre occurred there. Ophis then went to pick up her unconscious son, where she caressed her son's face as her anger shifted to sadness, seeing the poor state of Issei. Brachial did the same for his daughter, as she barely had the strength to stand up after everything she's been through. End of Akeno's explanation. Afterwards, our parents took us back home and treated our wounds. Auntie Ophis has been taking care of you every day, and it took much convincing to pry her off of you. I see. Thanks for filling in the blanks for me, Akeno-chan. I didn't get the chance to say this, but I'm sorry for everything that you have been through. For whatever reason, those devils were after me and you would not have been hurt if it were not for me, he soberly said as moved his head towards the floor. Akeno embraced him. It's okay. You protected me from them just like you promised. I'm just really glad that you are alright as well. As they were consoling each other, they heard a small laugh coming from the door. It seems I am interrupting something. If it means seeing my daughter react like this, then maybe Issei should get injured a bit more, she jokingly said as both quickly separated, each wearing a big blush on their faces. Although Shuri was teasing them, from her tone you could tell how relieved she was to see him awake and well. She approached them and sat down near Issei. I'm so relieved that you are alright, Issei. She smiled at him, who recovered from his blush, and he smiled back. Yes, Auntie Shuri, I'm fine. Dragons are very resilient after all, at least according to my dad. I also wanted to thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, God knows what would have happened to Akeno. You managed to protect her from those devils despite being injured, and so from the bottom of my heart, I thank you, she sincerely told him as she bowed her head. Seeing this, Issei started waving his hands left and right. Please don't bow to me, Auntie. Akeno is my best friend, but more than that, I see all of you as part of my family. I will protect those that I care about. That is the sort of person I want to be, he told her. She responded by giving him a hug. Yufu, what a fine young man you will turn out to be. It seems that Akeno will be in good hands, she casually said, which surprised Issei. Wait, what? I die. All of a sudden, the door burst open, and all of them turned their attention towards it to see who caused the commotion. From the entryway, they saw that it was Ophis, who as soon as she sensed her son awake, quickly bolted towards his room. Seeing him awake and healthy, in a burst of speed no saw coming, she rushed towards him and embraced him into her chest, while a well of tears dripped down her face. Issei, my baby boy, I'm so grateful you are alright. I'm sorry you had to go through all that pain and suffering. What a horrible mother I am to allow such a thing to happen to you. But Issei was very grateful for his mother's concern. Her breasts were currently suffocating him, as she is using a bit more strength than she intended, so he was trying to escape her grasp to catch his breath, but to no avail, as his strength pales in comparison to his mother. However, salvation came to him very soon in the form of his father. Ophis, calm down a little bit. You are suffocating the poor lad. Are you trying to finish what those devils started? His father told Ophis. Quickly realizing he was right, she let go of her son, who took a few deep breaths. Ophis blushed a little at what she did and told Issei she was sorry, but Issei told her that it was okay. He then looked at his father and thanked him for the save. Great Red patted his boy's head, then gave him his own embrace. Well done, my son. I am extremely proud of you with what you accomplished, and like your mother, I am extremely happy that you are safe. He let go Issei afterwards, as Brachial came from behind him and knelt down in front of Issei to give him a heart embrace as well. Issei, my boy, thank you so very much for doing what I couldn't and protecting my daughter. If it wasn't for you, she would not be with us, and for that you have my eternal gratitude. Thank you so much. Issei heard him say, and he could tell from his voice that he was crying with relief, showing how much he meant every word. Issei returned his embrace and said, no problem, Uncle Brachial, like I told Auntie Shuri, I will always protect those I care about. Great Red patted Issei's head again, proud of his answer, and Ophis gave him a wonderful smile, illustrating how proud she was of her son as well. If it wasn't already clear by this point, both Issei and Akeno regard each other parents as aunts and uncles, and they are all perfectly fine with it. Now Issei, although we already heard most of what happened from Akeno, I would like you to tell us of the events that occurred from your perspective if you do not mind. Issei nodded and began explaining everything that occurred since the moment they entered the park to the point where he lost consciousness. Shuri and Barakiel were once again reminded of how close Akeno came to lose her life, were it not for Issei. Ophis was furious that those worthless devils harmed her son and also proud of her son for his strength. Great Red was equally proud of his son as he also realized that he may have unconsciously used an ability that stems from his domain during his battle with the devils. Very interesting. From what you told me, it appears you activated an ability of mine called distortion. In its true form, the ability allows me to distort reality like its name suggests, making something out of nothing and making the impossible possible. In simpler terms, it is just like in a dream where anything you can imagine becomes real. What you accomplished was the basic form of the ability. It allowed you to react in a burst of speed unthinkable from your distance in order to intercept the attack that was headed towards Akeno. He explained to his son. But, how come I couldn't activate it again afterwards? He asked. You must have activated the ability subconsciously. Your strong desire to protect Akeno from harm must have brought out the ability from within you, but at the moment, your body is too weak to handle the continuous power and stress of using my abilities. Still, for you to activate subconsciously this early illustrates the bountiful potential you hold within you, my son. I have never been prouder of you, my boy. Great Red stated, which caused Issei to smile with a blush. His mother also agreed with his father. Anyways, what is your take on this, Barakiel, as you have more experience handling devils than us? To which Barakiel started thinking before answering. From what Issei and my daughter told us, at first, I thought that it was a group of stray devils who happened to come across our kids, but this felt too organized to that. They even knew that Issei was Ophis' child, which makes it all the more puzzling how they found out, considering how you've been keeping a low profile and not interacting with anyone other than us. And, before you ask, I swear on my family that none of us ever told a single soul about you. I can stake my life on that. The dragons both nodded, trusting it wasn't them. They develop a friendly relationship with them and know they would not put any of them in jeopardy. Barakiel continued, they have been carefully planning their moves until Issei was vulnerable, where they trapped him in a barrier which prevented even you guys from sensing the danger and ambushed him. We were lucky that Issei was able to destroy part of the barrier which allowed you to sense the danger, or our children wouldn't be with us today. The question becomes, who is bold and stupid enough to even attempt a kidnapping, knowing Issei is the son of a dragon god? I can safely say that none of the three factions would ever attempt a suicidal activity like this, since they do not wish to invoke your wrath on them. If it was the fallen angels, Azazel would have warned me about it. The devils would have most likely evacuated the area or even send all four mass to attempt something like this. Lastly, I don't see Michael and the angels targeting an innocent child, no matter which species they belong to. So then, this would be the efforts of a rogue devil group, which would further indicate that this was indeed done by Stray's devils. If I had the resources to investigate, I may have been able to come to a solid conclusion, however, unless I bring in Azazel to help us, it would be extremely hard to do. Anyhow, since their attempt has failed, they may be trying to recuperate and try again, so I suggest we keep our kids within eyesight at all times, until we can be sure that they are safe from any other attempts, Barakiel stated, as everyone agreed with his decision as well. They all decided to end this little meeting in order to allow everyone some due rest, much needed after all the stress this incident caused. Unknown to Issei, however, was that Akeno failed to mention or was too embarrassed to let him know of something else that happened. Before their parent saved them from the attack, she also whispered a few words to him, thinking her end was in sight. As she embraced Issei awaiting her demise, she whispered, "I'm sorry Issei-kun, I love you." Old Mau faction headquarters. Unbeknownst to Ophis and the rest, there was a survivor from the group that assaulted Issei and Akeno, who observed the entire situation from afar and quickly evacuated before they could sense and obliterate him. Now, he was making his way towards his leaders to explain of the events that transpired, knowing that they would be displeased with the results. He opened the doors leading to the room where all three descendants of the Maus were discussing their future plans. They turned towards him wanting to see who disturbed their meeting. Beelzebub was clearly annoyed at this and snapped at the poor fellow. "Why have you interrupted our meeting? You better have a good reason for wasting our precious time." The devil gulped and took a deep breath before answering him. "My lords, I am part of the group that has been assigned to kidnap the spawn of Ophis, and I came to relay the news." "Then off with it. Let's hear it." The devil then explained the events that occurred, and as expected, Beelzebub was furious, while the other two were displeased that their plan had failed. "You are also useless." Beelzebub screamed as he shot a block of demonic power towards the messenger, killing him instantly. He then proceeded to smash the table in front of him, trying to dispel his anger, but with little success. "Damn it, now how are we supposed to acquire Ophis power? We concocted an order to force it to give us power only for it to end in failure. All that time and manpower wasted and for nothing." letting out his demonic power which forced his subordinates to run outside lest they face the same fate as their earlier brethren, leaving only the other two descendants to deal with him. Calm yourself, Shalba. You are disgracing the title of Beelzebub with this display, Kateria told him. Shalba turned his attention towards and sneered at her. Don't you dare mock me, Kateria. This was all your idea in the first place and it ended in failure. I knew we should have sent one of us with those idiots to ensure success, yet both of you denied it. This time Crucery Asmodeus responded to him. Do not be a fool, Shalba. You know as well as I do why we could not gone with them. Unlike our servants, Ophis would have definitely been able to recognize us, and the last thing we want is for it to get in our way. Based on how the situation went for them, it seems we underestimated the boy, but in the end, they were all obliterated by Ophis. If we went with them and she saw us, she would have instantly known it was us, and her wrath would have descended upon us. Our ambitions would have ended then and there. Is that what you want, Shalba? Crucery vented towards him. Usually, Crucery is always calm, but seeing Shalba insult the women he loves invoke his anger. Kateria continued after him. Thankfully, from what he told us, those idiots did not reveal any important information regarding their allegiance, so they would most likely believe the group to be stray devils and not suspect that it was us who orchestrated everything. It is a real shame that we will not be able to acquire Ophis power, but we need to cut our losses and move on. Any further assault on Ophis spawn will just redirect her anger at us, which is something we cannot afford at the present time. Kateria calmly explained to both her colleagues. Then what do you suppose we do? Unless you forgot, we need the dragon's power in order to usurp those fake masks and reclaim our rightful place in the underworld. We simply must find a different source of power, so it would seem we have no choice but to contact him for help. I contacted him once before and he said he would be happy to offer his aid, so long as we help him with a few things, she told them. Eventually Shalba reluctantly agreed with his fellow Mau, as his goals took priority over anything else. He will have his revenge against the new Mau and will become the ruler he was always meant to be, whatever the sacrifices need to be made. The year has passed since the incident with the rogue devils and life had gone back to normal for everyone. In the beginning, Ophis, Great Red and Barakiel kept their children as close as possible to ensure their safety in case the devils decided to make another attempt at their children. However, after a few months of no activity, they judged that everything was fine and soon everything went back to normal after everything calmed down. Issei's and Akeno's relationship continued to grow with each passing day. It got to the point where they were practically inseparable. In addition, Issei started to take his training a lot more seriously since the incident taught him that there were a lot of dangerous beings out there and he needed to grow stronger in order to be able to protect Akeno and those he held dear. He understood that his victory was only due to luck, having been able to destroy the barrier containing them, thus allowing their parents to rescue them. To make matters worse, according to Akeno, he lost consciousness while there were still many enemies left alive, thus endangering her life. Of course, no one blamed him for having lost consciousness. He fought with every ounce of strength he had and against several enemies while protecting Akeno from harm. The very fact that he managed to do that at such a young age was worthy of praise, but unfortunately, for Issei it was a strike to his pride. He won the battle but lost the war. If his parents were a tad bit late or he failed to destroy the barrier, then both of them would not have been alive today, which is why he wished to gain strength in order to avoid such a scenario from happening again. Even Akeno started to get better at using her holy lighting. She wanted to get stronger so she would not be a burden to Issei. Even though he denied it, she knew that Issei would have had a much easier time had she not been so weak and useless. Most of the time, the devils took advantage of her in order to be able to land hits on Issei. Not only did he have to focus on fighting the enemy, but he also had to split his attention towards protecting her, which made him more vulnerable to Valpur's assault. The scar across his chest is proof enough of her inadequacy. In order to avoid being placed in such a situation ever again, she started training with her dad whenever he had time to spare. Today, however, was not a time for unpleasant thoughts, because today was a special day, and both of them were busy getting ready for the occasion. Today was Issei's birthday, and both families agreed to spend his birthday at the amusement park, which made him very excited. They were supposed to go there last year, but the devil incident caused their parents to become paranoid and would not let the kids out of their sights, so there was barely any chance to do any activities other than staying at each other's place. But now that things calmed down and the fact that it was Issei's birthday, they could finally plan a trip to the amusement park. After waking up, he quickly dressed himself up and headed downstairs for breakfast. His parents had already finished eating and were ready to go, but it seems they were having a bit of an argument. For the last time, we are not going using your cough, useless motorcycle. We already agreed to meet Shuri and her family at their shrine, and we can simply teleport there. Ophis told Great Red. She had to correct herself there as she did not want to swear in front of Issei as much as possible. Why not? This bike is super fast and we can meet them in style, complained Great Red. Their bike will just give me and Issei a massive headache with all the noise it creates. That contraption is even noisier than you, and that is saying something. Oh why, Ophis. This bike is a divine creation. A miracle created by the hands of humans, and it does not deserve to be called a contraption. This is the god of all machines with speed exceeding. However, before he could continue, he was interrupted by his wife. Yeah, I already heard all of that a million times already. If you love it so much, why don't you marry it? I'm sure me and Issei can find another place to stay and leave you two alone. Ophis teased him with a devious smirk on her face. Great Red, caught by surprise by that statement, could only stutter a response. It seems that after all these years spent together, she finally knows how to deal with him, which just left him grumbling. HMF, I liked you better when you were trying to kill me, he whispered. What was that? She retorted. Nothing. We will do things your way. Today is Issei's special day, and I wouldn't want us to spend it arguing over pointless things, he sighed, looking at Issei, who was finishing his breakfast. Yes, it is. She nodded as she shifted her attention towards Issei. Issei, are you done with your breakfast? Yes, Mom. I've finished eating. Let's go, said an excited Issei already at the door, which caused both parents to laugh at their son's reactions. Alright Issei, come here. We will be teleporting to the shrine to save time and meet up with Shuri, Barakiel and Akeno. Hi Issei said, making his way towards his parents. When they were all ready, Ophis activated her magic circle, which teleported them to their destination. Now located in front of the familiar, the Haidu family made its way towards the front entrance, where they were greeted with the sight of the family they were going to meet. At the sight of Issei, Akeno quickly ran towards him with a bright smile on her face and enveloped him into a hug. Happy birthday Issei. She cheered. Thank you Akeno-chan, he answered as he returned her embrace. In back of Akeno were her parents, who were slowly making their way towards them, and seeing this display caused Shuri to giggle. Ara, Fufu. The day has barely begun, and Akeno has already made our little Issei happy. We have your gifts ready for you at home, but if you prefer, we can always change them and give you Akeno, if it will make you happier. She teased, which got the exact reaction she hoped for as they both separated from one another, blushing healingly. Great Red then joined in on the fun. You can't do that, Shuri. There is no way we can defeat that gift. Ha, he said, causing the others to also join in on the joke. Although it didn't seem possible, Issei and Akeno's cheek became a brighter sheet of red as they shouted respectively. Dad, Mom. As the laugh settled down, Ophis decided to get everyone back on track, albeit with a little tease mixed in. If you are done bullying the newlyweds, we have an amusement park to get to. Everyone nodded at her statement, and Issei's mood went from embarrassed to excited in one moment. Yay, let's go. A few moments later, they all arrived at the amusement park, and Issei could hide the awe he felt at the sheer size and number of rides there were. So many people were seen enjoying every sort of ride, and he could not wait to get on each of them, as this was his first time in such a place. Akeno could not help but share in his excitement. However, unlike Issei, this is not the first time she had been to the amusement park, as her parents took her once before. She was also excited because this would be the first time she could come to such a place with not only her friend, but with the boy who she held a crush on. Before she could continue on with her thoughts, Issei grabbed her by the hand and dragged her towards the rides, in the process causing her to blush at his assertiveness, but went by unnoticed by the culprit. Let's go on this one, Akeno. Issei pointed towards the roller coaster. Akeno simply nodded as they made their way towards the line. Their parents following closely behind while chatting with one another. Time went by very fast for Issei as he got on different rides. Rollercoaster, merry-go-round, pirate ship, and he even tried bungee jumping, although that made him a bit nauseous, but nevertheless, he had a lot of fun. They even went into the arcade, and this is where things got a bit interesting. He challenged Akeno to many different games, from racing games to dancing games, but he always ended up losing. Akeno-chan, can't you go easy on me please? Pouted Issei, causing Akeno to laugh. Ara, can't the big strong dragon handle a little challenge? Are you asking me for some mercy? Teased Akeno. Never, let's go again. Shouted Issei, having his pride as a dragon wounded as he continued to play game after game against her, but still losing. Amusingly enough, a short distance away, a similar situation was occurring with their fathers. Great Red, having spotted a motorcycle game, quickly challenged Barakiel to a match, which he accepted. Are you ready for a royal beatdown, Barakiel? Challenged Great Red with a smirk. Barakiel answered with one of his own, bring it on, Red. Unfortunately for Great Red, a real motorcycle is very different from an arcade one, and he kept making mistakes, causing him to lose the race. I want a rematch. I just went easy on you, okay? That is the only reason I lost, but this time I will win. shouted Great Red, throwing a temper tantrum like a child. Deciding to humor him, Barakiel accepted his offer. Despite his eagerness, Great Red, like his son, kept losing time and time again. During one game he even resorted to cheating. When he was sure no one was looking at their direction, he spawned his tail and poked at Barakiel's side, causing him to lose concentration and allowing Great Red to take the lead in their race. "Wow, resorting to cheating, now are we? I never pegged you for a sore loser, Red," giggled Barakiel. "Doesn't matter. All is fair in love and war, and I will win by any means necessary," he said. Yet, despite cheating, he still ended up losing, causing him to brood even further. Ophis could do nothing but sigh at both her husband's and son's behavior. "Yufu, why don't we go and have tea while the kids are having their fun," suggested Shuri, who casually even called her husband a kid. Ophis simply nodded as they made their way towards a seated table. Sometimes I really wish he would act proper for once in his life," stated Ophis about her husband. "He could, but then he wouldn't be the man you fell in love with, right?" Ophis sighed, knowing that what Shuri said was true. "You're right, as always. I just wish Issei wouldn't behave too much like his father. Children inherit the traits of both their parents. Some are good and some are bad. Yet, despite that, we will never stop loving and cherishing them," Shuri stated, looking towards her daughter. Ophis doing the same thing with her son. "Indeed. No matter what he becomes, I will always love my little Issei," she said with a smile on her face. Time went by and eventually they made it out of the arcade, although both Issei and Great Red could be seen head down brooding over their defeats. With synchronized motion they pointed towards their respective opponents. "Next time, I will not lose," they both said at the same time. Ophis, recalling her earlier conversation with Shuri, could not help but let out a small smile, like father, like son indeed. All of a sudden, everyone a loud growl noise coming from both of them. "Oh, it seems we played until we were both hungry," rubbing his stomach as Great Red said this. Everyone started laughing, making Issei a bit embarrassed but still joined in on the laugh. They made their way towards a restaurant where they could fill their bellies. Great Red ate what seems like an entire buffet, while Ophis just had spaghetti bolognese. Shuri ordered a salad and Barakiel, a steak. Issei, for his part, ate a steak and the same spaghetti his mom took, while Akeno simply had the same as her mom. Noticing that evening was fast approaching, they quickly finished eating and headed out to take part in one last ride, the Ferris wheel. Normally, there was enough space for all of them to enter, but they wanted to give their kids some private time together. Ophis even went up to the operator and asked if she could allow their son's cart to stop at the top for his birthday. Of course, her request was immediately accepted, since it is impossible to say no to a goddess incarnate like Ophis, even if the recipient is a woman. If anything, during their entire trip, so many people have been gawking at Ophis. Both men and women stopping to get even a glimpse of her beauty. Men started in lust while women in awe and jealousy. Yet this time, Ophis straight up ignored them all, focusing on her son's birthday. Anyways, as the ride was coming to a close, just as per Ophis requests, Issei's and Akeno's cart stopped at the top, giving way to a magnificent view of the amusement park, as well as the city of Kuo. "Wow, what a fantastic view," Akeno pointed out, looking outside. "Yes, it really is," he answered. However, he was not talking about the scenery when he said that, but rather about the beautiful girl standing right in front of him, although Akeno did not notice this. Akeno Issei called out to her, which made her turn her attention towards him as he continued. "Thank you very much for being here with me today. I cannot express how happy I am at the moment. Today has really been one of the best days of my life, and I am glad that you are here to share it with me," Issei said, revealing a beautiful smile that caused Akeno to blush heavily as she tried desperately to let out a response. Thank you, Issei. I feel the same way as you do. I had a wonderful time today," letting out her own impeccable smile as both of them stared passionately into each other's eyes. Issei, just before Akeno could finish her statement, their attention was redirected towards a loud noise coming from outside their cart. The fireworks display had started and it was a very beautiful display. The grand finale featured a large variety of fireworks of different colors, which was awesome, but what surprised them both was the message displayed in the sky when the largest firework exploded, revealing "Happy Birthday, Issei." Great Red had used his powers to manipulate the fireworks to give his son one last birthday gift. Issei could not help but let out a few tears, expressing how happy he really is. Boom. The sound of another firework being launched reached their ears. This was most likely the last one before the end. What appeared out of that firework was something no one even imagined. It was an image of Great Red's motorcycle. He just had to have the last laugh. From inside their cart they could hear, "You bloody idiot," the sound of Ophis screaming at Great Red's idiocy. Looking down, they could actually see her strangling the life out of Great Red, shouting other curse words, with Shuri and Barakiel laughing on the side. Seeing this spectacle caused them to laugh in turn, thus bringing the day to an end. On their way out of the amusement park, everyone could tell that Ophis was in a less pleasant mood over her husband's actions. Why the hell did you have to ruin the day with that? Hey. You have to at least give me that. I couldn't bring my motorcycle today, so this was to make up for it. This was supposed to be Issei's special day. I honestly believed it was very sweet of you to use your powers in such a way with the fireworks display. And yet, you just had to show everyone your ridiculous freaking bike. Emphasizing the last part. What are you talking about? Many people thought that my motorcycle was cool. Yeah, and they all look like degenerate delinquents. At least they have an appreciation for class. While his parents were bickering, Issei could not help but be happy about today. Despite what his mother believes, he had a blast today, and he appreciates them organizing today, and while it did not end positively, he was spending time with the people he cares about the most, and he would not trade this for any luxury in the world. Well, this is where we part ways. Once again, happy birthday Issei, and I hope you had a pleasant time today. Exclaimed Barakiel, who patted the boy's head, turning his attention towards his uncle. Yeah, I had a blast, uncle. Thank you for coming, and you as well, Auntie Shuri. He said as Shuri embraced him in a hug, also wishing him a good birthday. We also had fun, Issei-kun. It was a pleasure to be part of such a special day, and I think I can also for Akeno as well when I say there is no way we were going to miss it for the world. You know it isn't too late to switch your gifts for Akeno, Yufufu. Mom. The last part of Shuri's statement caused Akeno become embarrassed as she blushed at the remark, which served to cause her mom to laugh some more. Sorry honey, but I just can't help but tease the two of you whenever possible. She said, looking over her daughter, who had a pouting expression. Understanding that this was who her mom was, she let out a small sigh in order to calm herself before turning her attention towards Issei. She moved forward and hugged him, wishing him a happy birthday before heading back home. Once again, happy birthday Issei. I also had a great time today, and I hope to do this again someday. Thank you Akeno, although next time I will win. He said, still bitter at not being able to claim a single victory over her at the arcade. If Yufu, one can always dream. Akeno said, teasing Issei, causing him to pout, which she found cute. Before separating, Issei remembered something he wanted to ask her. Akeno-chan, at the Ferris wheel you were trying to tell me something before we were interrupted by the fireworks display, so I was just wondering what you wanted to tell me then. His curiosity getting the better of him and asking her what she wanted to tell him. What he got in response was a heavy blush by Akeno, who could not believe that he recalled such a moment. Taking a moment to recompose herself and to think of something to say, she took a deep breath and answered. This isn't the right time to tell you Issei-san, but in a few weeks my birthday is coming up. Would you mind waiting until then to hear what I have to say? She looked to him, anticipating his answer. Of course, I don't mind Akeno-chan. I promise that on your birthday, I will listen to whatever you wish to tell me. He said, lifting his pinky finger. Akeno then hooked her own on his, solidifying their little oath as they both smiled towards one another. It's a promise they both said at the same time before separating and returning to their respective families. Both families waved goodbye to each other before heading back home. On their way home, Barakiel receives a call from none other than Azazel. Normally, this wouldn't be an issue, but considering that today was his day off, the fact that he is contacting him now can only mean that there is some time of problem. Azazel, is something the matter? Asked Barakiel. Hey my friend. As a matter of fact, there is. Sorry for disrupting your day, however, Grigori is under siege by various groups of rogue devils. I've already dispatched our forces, but the northern section of Grigori has asked for reinforcements. Kakabiel, Penemu and Shemzahai are busy dealing with their own enemies, so the only one I can ask for help is you. I know you were supposed to have the entire day off today, and I really apologize for the inconvenience, but if you can spare a moment of your time to help me resolve the issue, I would greatly appreciate it. With your help, it should not take too long, at most a few hours. Azazel explained in a serious attitude in contrast to his usual upbeat attitude, emphasizing how serious the situation is. Barakiel did not want to leave, but Azazel would not have contacted him if he could have helped it. With a heavy sigh he nodded to himself. Alright Azazel, I'll be right there. Send me the coordinates and I'll deal with the situation as quick as possible. Thank you Barakiel. To make up for this, I can give you the rest of the week off so you can spend it with your family. Also, say hi to Shuri for me, and not to beat you up too badly when you return. Hahaha, he said, reverting to his usual laid-back behavior when he stated the last sentence, resulting in a small laugh from Barakiel. Some things never change. Haha, that might not be possible Azazel. Anyway, I'll talk to you soon. Very well. Good luck and stay safe. Azazel said as he hanged up the call. Barakiel then shifted his attention to his wife, who had a worried look on her face. Akeno, on the other hand, had no idea what was going on and simply continued walking to her house. Is everything alright? Shuri asked her husband, who turned his head side to side. No, I just received an emergency summon from Azazel, who needs my help taking down rogue devils attacking Grigori. I'm sorry honey, I know that I promised to spend the entire day with you, but Shuri placed a finger on his mouth, thus interrupting what Barakiel was about to say, which surprised him. You should go. Akeno and I will be just fine. You need to go and help your friends, she said, caressing his cheek to show everything was fine. Barakiel embraced his wife in a hug. Thank you Shuri. They both shared a before separating as Barakiel prepared to depart. I'm off, I won't take too long. Tell Akeno I'll be back soon, smiled Barakiel as his wife smiled back as he teleported to Grigori. After that was done, Shuri made her way towards Akeno, who noticed that her father was missing. Where did Tucson go? She asked her mother, who responded. Your father had to leave for an important meeting with his friends, but he will be back soon, so let's go home and prepare dinner, shall we? Shuri lied to her daughter due to the fact that she didn't want to rekindle any difficult memories. It has only been a year since the rogue devil's assault against them, and she was scared that if she told Akeno about the real reason he left, it might have negative consequences. Besides, today was a day of happiness, having celebrated Issei's birthday, and her daughter was incredibly happy. No need to ruin the occasion, so a small eye is fine. Alright, Ka-san, she said as both women headed home. Unbeknownst to them, they were being followed. It seems our source was correct. This is the family of that accursed fallen angel, Barakiel, said an unknown man. Good. Contact the rest of the team and tell them to meet up in Kuo. We will finally be able to claim our vengeance against that monster. He smirked evilly. The other followed suit before contacting the rest of their group. Back at the shrine, Shuri finished preparing dinner for her family, so all that was left was to wait for Barakiel to come home and eat. She looks over near the entrance to spot Akeno waiting for her father to return through the entrance. Smiling at her daughter, she made her way towards her, lifted her to place her on her lap, and decided to brush her hair. When will Dad get home? Akeno asked her mother. Soon, dear. He just needs to finish his bus. All of a sudden, her senses warned her of incoming danger as she grabbed her daughter and bolted away from her spot. Mere moments later, the front entrance blew up, sending debris everywhere. If Shuri had not reacted as soon as she did, then both of them might not have survived the impact. However, the room itself is now a huge mess. The tansu has been pushed down on the floor, and there is now a huge hole in the tatami floor. The dinner table is now turned upside down with dinner food sprayed all over the ground. After regaining her senses, she quickly looked to see if Akeno was alright, and to her relief, she did not have a scratch on her save for her clothes being singed due to the blast's heat. Her attention was soon diverted as many unknown men stormed in the place and surrounded them. Who are you and what do you want with us? She screamed at them while keeping her daughter close to her, who was very scared at the moment, while internally thinking, Tucson, help us. Please Tucson, help. Issei-kun. As she buried her trembling body into her mom's embrace, praying that help will come in time. One of them stepped forward with a smirk on his face and answered. Well, since you ask so nicely, we are your enemies, or more specifically, we bear a grudge with the fallen angel Barakiel. He has been a thorn in our side for many years, so when we received a tip telling us where his family was hidden, well, the chance was too good to pass up. Shuri shivered, understanding what they were planning to do, but she would be damned if she let anything happen to Akeno. Another one stepped forward, presumably the leader since he carried himself as such. I will have you hand that child over. She is the child of the hated and evil Black Angel, he told her, only to get shut down. I won't hand over this child. This child is my precious daughter. And also an important and precious daughter of that person. Never. I will absolutely not hand her over. The leader simply sighed. It seems, just like we were told, that you have indeed been defiled by the fallen angel. What a shame that for such a noble lineage to fall in disgrace. It can't be helped then. Akeno watched as the Jitsusha drew out a katana, lifted it up high and slashed down. Akeno's mind slowed down as the katana made contact with on her mother's back. Blood splashing upwards as her mother's body was slowly dropping lifelessly to the ground, having protected her daughter. Ooh, Ka-san, Akeno shrieked as she shacked her mother body, trying desperately to wake her up. Please wake up, Ka-san, pleaded Akeno in tears, completely in denial that her mother has passed away in her arms. HMF, that wretched woman got what she deserved. To think she would spoil her lineage with a disgusting fallen angel. Spat one of them. Akeno could do nothing but stare at them, clear anger in her eyes, but powerless to do anything against them. Remember this, fallen angels are evil existences that have been cast out of heaven due to their sins, and it is our mission to get rid of them for the good of humanity. It is a real shame about your mother, but if your mother did not associate with these evil beings, she would still be alive today. Unfortunately, since you are a spawn of that wretched angel, your existence is one that we also cannot tolerate. I do not enjoy torturing children, so I'll make this as painless as possible. The leader once again made his way forward and lifted his katana to finish what they all came to do. Before the Jitsusha could finish off Akeno, they heard a loud crash behind them. "Stay away from my daughter." An angry Barakiel stood behind them ready to kill them. Having sensed that something was wrong, he quickly dispatched the rogue devils he was assigned to get rid of and quickly teleported his way back home, only to find that he was too late. Tears flowing out of his face as he looked upon his wife's dead body, which quickly turned into extreme rage as he saw the men responsible trying to finish off his daughter. He quickly shot a bolt of lightning at the Jitsusha that was about to strike at Akeno, reducing him to ash. Some of them tried to attack Barakiel, but unfortunately none could even come close to reaching him before being vaporized by his lightning. The rest tried their best to get away, however Barakiel was not having any of that. Using his lightning, he quickly vaporized any of them that stood in his way. This one-sided massacre ended after a few minutes, with all Jitsusha lying dead before his feet with Barakiel covered in their blood. Unfortunately, there was no happiness to be had as he looked upon his wife's lifeless body embraced by his crying daughter, asking her mother to wake up. Unfortunately, trouble was still lurking. Outside the shrine, hidden by concealment spells, several unknown people were discussing amongst themselves. It seems the Jitsusha have failed. Despite giving them Barakiel's coordinates, they couldn't even finish off a helpless girl. How useless, the lot of them. "We should have taken care of this situation ourselves," said one of them. "Well, it wasn't a total loss. It seems they managed to get rid of that disgraceful woman, Shuri. I cannot believe she would dare to soil our clan's bloodline with a disgusting fallen angel," spitted another one, revealing that these men were part of the Himejima clan. "Still, do you think it wise to do this without informing the council?" Disgraced though she may be, Shuri was still a member of the Himejima clan. Pondered a female of the group, receiving a few nods from her compatriots. "Ah. The moment she copulated with a fallen angel was the day she turned her back on our clan, and while they didn't take any direct action against her, the council also wanted nothing more to do with her. She was basically shunned by her family, and no one will miss her save for a few ingrates. In addition, you should not worry about the council, for it was our superior who ordered this. Many preparations have been made so this would not be traced back to us. If anything, they will most likely believe that the fallen angel himself got tired of them and disposed of them himself." Another answered, most likely the leader of the bunch. "It is a shame that those useless Jitsusha were unable to dispose of that fallen spawn, but they did buy us the necessary amount of time to finish our preparations," he said as another member came out from the bushes to confirm what he just said. "Sir, all the seals are in place. We await only your order to begin." "Very good. Everyone, get into position. Today is the day we rid ourselves of the Himejima disgrace." "Yes sir," everyone replied as they all moved to their assigned position ready to begin. Back inside the house, a brooding Barakiel slowly made his way towards his fallen wife, while a sobbing Akeno was trying so desperately to wake up her mother. "Ka-san. Nu Ka-san, please wake up." Akeno was shaking the body of her mother, who had already passed away, and was crying out. "Shuri. Barakiel-san tries to touch his wife with his trembling hands. "Don't touch her." Akeno clashed her anger against her father. Why didn't you stay with mom? We always waited for Tusan. If Tusan was here, then Kasama wouldn't have died." Barakiel did not say a word as Akeno continued releasing her anger. "Those people said this. That Tusan is a black angel, and that you are evil. They said that black angels are bad people. They said that I'm a bad child because I also have black wings. If Tusan and I didn't have black wings, then Kasan wouldn't have died. Hate. I hate it. I hate these black wings. I hate you. I hate everyone. I hate them." Barakiel couldn't do anything but let his daughter release her frustrations on him. His heart shattered to pieces as his daughter shouted her hatred at him. He couldn't blame her for feeling this way, not only because she was a child, but because he knew she was right. It was his duty to protect them, and when they needed him most, he wasn't there to help them. He had failed them. If only he sensed the danger sooner, he could have made it in time to save his wife. Now, he could do nothing but stare helplessly at his wife's body with tears dripping down his face. Before he could continue mourning, he suddenly felt a hostile presence outside, putting him on alert. Are these reinforcements the Jitsusha had in reserves or someone else entirely? He didn't know, but he would be damned if he would allow any more harm to come to his family. He lost his wife, but he was going to make sure he would protect their daughter. "Stay inside, Akeno," he told her as he bolted outside his house, stopping at the entrance. He carefully scanned his surroundings, trying to pinpoint where the enemy is at while slowly moving forward so as not to be caught off guard. Unfortunately, he was too worried about possible sneak attacks that he failed to recognize that he stepped right into their trap. All of a sudden, a multi-layered barrier surrounded Barakiel, who recognized the spell. How could he not when it felt like the same type power his wife uses? It carried the Himejima clan symbol when it appeared. He did not understand what was going on, but he would think on it later on. His first priority is to destroy the barrier and protect his daughter from harm. Gathering a large amount of holy lightning, he blasted it at the barrier, causing many of the inner layers to break. However, the outer layer held strong to Barakiel's surprise, and in an instant, the inner layers that were destroyed quickly repaired themselves. This meant that in order to be free, he would have to generate a large amount of power to completely destroy the barrier in one move. Given enough time, Barakiel could easily accomplish such an act. He wasn't a cadre for nothing. Unfortunately, life is never that easy. He looked down towards his feet and noticed another magic circle surrounding him. At first, he thought it was an attempt to strike him. Surround him with a barrier, thus trapping him, followed by an unavoidable attack. A sound strategy when taking on a powerful opponent. Unfortunately, he realized too little too late what the circle actually was. His expression turned into one of fear when he noticed that the magic circle was in fact a teleportation circle. Normally, it is possible to cancel or negate a teleportation spell, but it requires one to do so the moment it spawns into existence, for that is when it is the most vulnerable. Unfortunately, Barakiel was so focused on getting rid of the barrier surrounding him that he failed to notice the spell spawning underneath him in time, thus missing his window of opportunity to negate it. His enemy's main strategy was never to take him down, but, rather, to take him out of the equation, leaving his daughter vulnerable. Realizing the severity of the situation, Barakiel desperately unleashed everything he had, praying it would work. Unfortunately, his lightning wasn't condensed and focused enough to completely annihilate the barrier. He needed time to condense his lightning into powerful burst, and unfortunately, his enemies took away that option for him. Seeing that Barakiel was trapped, the leader revealed a smirk. "It's time," he said as he took out a small talisman from his pocket and launched it upwards. The talisman caught fire, causing to burst into flames. The other members, seeing this, understood that it was the signal to begin the operation. Almost in unison, they each took out a similar talisman as their leaders and begun reciting some unknown chant, most likely a Himejima spell. They then released their talismans, each of them taking a separate position surrounding the shrine. From them spawned a magic circle which started to gather power. Himejima's sacred arts lightning release, rate, and they all shouted at the same time as a massive lightning dragon came crashing down on the shrine, enveloping it completely and reducing it to ashes. Nuoaki and Barakiel could do nothing but scream helplessly for his daughter as the shrine was reduced to rubble before the teleportation took him someplace else. It was Issei. Just as Barakiel disappeared, another figure made his appearance, and that person was Issei, who sadly witnessed the entire scene. On his way home, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, feeling that something is wrong. It was then followed by what he could have sworn was Akeno's voice calling out to him. Issei. Wanting to figure out what was happening, he told his parents that he accidentally left something back at Akeno's place and that he was going to get it. Getting their permission, he spawned his wings, hoping to make it faster by air rather than by land. No matter how much time passed or how closer he got to the shrine, that sickening feeling in the pit of his stomach would not go away, causing unimaginable worry to Sprite from Issei as he picked up the pace. After a few minutes, he could see his destination coming to view. From afar, the shrine looked fine, and he was able to sense Akeno's presence, causing him to let out a small sigh of relief. All of a sudden, a massive pillar of lightning formed above the shrine, and the next moment the shrine was gone along with any presence of Akeno. He could not comprehend what just happened. One moment, he was making his way towards the shrine, and the next, when he got inside of it, an immense pillar of lightning suddenly came into being and enveloped the entire shrine. Then, a moment later, everything in sight was gone, the shrine, the surrounding trees, everything. All that was left was a huge crater where everything once stood. He was so out of it that he couldn't even hear Barakiel's cry just before he disappeared. In the background, one could hear small cracking noises coming from Issei. The inevitable conclusion that he could no longer deny, Akeno had died, right in front of him. His breathing slowly became erratic as his mind slowly shut down, feeling as though a world filled with nothing but darkness surrounded him. In this seemingly empty void, images began to flash in front of them, and all of them were images of Akeno. Issei-san. Another crack was heard. Her smile. Her expressions. Her smell. Her touch. More cracks were heard. Everything about of her started springing forth from his memories as he heard a voice similar to his own, yelling out the very outcome he feared with all his soul. You failed her. In that very same moment, the last crack was heard as all the seals placed on him suddenly disappeared as he let out a deafening cry, his voice sounding even deeper than usual. Akeno. A massive explosion of dark crimson aura burst forth from Issei after his sorrowful cry, reaching all the way to the sky, as if piercing the heavens and causing a massive shockwave around him. The exorcists responsible for this mess did not even have time to understand what was happening when the aura enveloped them, incinerating them from existence. Within the aura, a massive 25-foot-tall crimson dragon emerged. The majority of his body was covered with dark red scales. Issei's lower body, specifically his stomach, the inner portions of his long tail and legs, are beige in color. Issei also possessed a large scar, located around the center of his body, that he got years ago when fighting the 8-winged devil Valper. I forgot to include this little bit of info in the previous chapter, but he did get a large scar on his chest courtesy of Valper. His back has numerous black spikes, reaching down from the back to the end of his tail. Issei has a triangular head with horns, a pair of large round red eyes with black sclera, and a sharp horn pointing upwards just above his nose. Issei also sports very sharp canine teeth and has claws with long, sharp red nails. Growing in his back, Issei possessed 4 large bony wings with dark outlines and rippled tips. Can anyone guess who I modeled him after? If you do, leave it on the review and next chapter 1 will reveal the answer. The very earthquake beneath his rage as the citizens of Kuo, or even the entirety of Japan, become scared at the sudden earthquake. The sky above Issei seemed to part in two, as if even the heavens above cowers, before the chaos caused by Issei's unrivaled power, as lightning and thunder came striking down the earth. Strangely enough, the only area unaffected by his massive power was the ruins of the shrine. It seems that, subconsciously, Issei is still trying to protect Akeno's home even in his frenzied state. The first beings who came onto the scene were, fortunately, Ophis and Great Red, having sensed that something was wrong the moment Issei's seals begun to break and quickly made their way towards him. They were greeted by the sight of a very enraged Issei in his dragon form, with a ruined environment all around them, most likely due to Issei's power going out of control. The first to say anything was Ophis, who worried out of her mind for her son. What the hell happened here? What happened to Issei? She shouted at Great Red, hoping he would have some answer. Unfortunately, Great Red had none to give her, as even he had no idea of the events that transpired here. All he knew was that they had to do something about their son before the situation escalates even further and all hell breaks loose, literally. I don't know, but there are more pressing matters at the moment to tend to. Right now, we need to get Issei out of here. No doubt many supernatural beings felt his power and are most likely on their way here to see what is going on, and right now we need to help Issei calm down rather than dealing with the nuisances. Open a gate to the dimensional gap and I'll send Issei in there. We will figure out what happened when we finish dealing with this mess. Ophis nodded as she did exactly what he asked before going in herself. Great Red quickly took position in front of Issei as he launched himself towards his son. Sorry about this, Issei, he thought as he smashed himself into Issei, causing him to roar in pain as he was propelled into the portal leading into the dimensional gap, which closed as soon as they entered. Moments later, Great Red's predictions came true as multiple magical signatures came into view and, one by one, multiple beings from different religion popped out from the circles. The first was a handsome man who seems to be in his early 20s. He possesses shoulder-length crimson red hair and blue-green eyes. He is Surzich's Lucifer, one of the devil kings in charge of the underworld and potentially the strongest devil alive. Alongside him was another man who is Surzich's childhood friend and is considered to rival Surzich in strength and is known as a super devil alongside him. The man also appeared to be in his early 20s but possessed short green hair that was slicked back with light blue eyes. His name was Ajuka Beelzebub, formerly belonging to the Astaroth family and the creator of the evil pieces system that saved their race from extinction. The third person who accompanied them was none other than Seraphol Leviathan, or as she liked to call herself, Magical Leviathan, as she could be seen wearing her magical girl outfit. She is a beautiful woman looking in her late teens with black hair and possesses an incredible figure despite her childlike body. These 3 people are 3 of the 4 Magus of the underworld tasked with leading the devil faction. The last one, Falbium Asmodia, stayed behind in case something happened and also because he found it too bothersome to leave. Out of all the Magus, he had a more laid-back attitude. The next person to show up was a tall man appearing to be in his 20s with an average build, black hair, golden bangs and black goatee. He also possesses 12 jet black feathered wings that grow out from his back. This was Azazel, the fallen angel leader of Grigori and inventor of many artificial sacred gears. The next man was similarly one of the leaders of his faction after the death of his father. It was the Seraph Michael, who alongside his siblings Gabriel, Raphael and Uriel, took over leadership when their father fell in battle, although this was a very tight secret known only to the upper echelons of the 3 great factions. He has the appearance of a handsome-looking man with long blonde hair and green eyes. Like Azazel, he has 12 wings growing from his back, and unlike other angels whose wings are white, his wings are colored gold, further symbolizing his position as the former leader. He wears a red robe with a gold cross on the front of his white alb. He has golden shoulder plates with a white sash and a golden halo set above his head. Usually he would be sporting a graceful smile, but this time, it was not present on his face, illustrating how urgent the situation is. Alongside him came the aforementioned Gabriel. Gabriel has the appearance of an extremely beautiful woman with curly blonde hair and a voluptuous figure, and is known as the most beautiful woman in heaven. Like other seraphs, Gabriel has 12 wings growing from her back. Unlike her brother, she still possessed her beautiful smile embodying her great kindness and innocence. There have been many angels who have fallen from grace from lusting after her. Even in the underworld, she is seen as a true beauty, and many devils would trade most of their fortunes to spend a single night with her. The rest of the seraphim decided to stay behind in heaven to fortify their defenses, while Michael and Gabriel tried to uncover who was behind that unfathomable power. Unfortunately, it was not only the leaders of the three factions who felt this unknown power and came to investigate. Many other supernatural factions felt this overwhelming strength and came to investigate regardless of the fact that they would be encroaching on another faction's territory which could initiate war. This showed the importance they placed in figuring out what this potential threat could be. One of these leaders that appeared was Odin, who is the chief deity of Norse mythology. Odin has the appearance of an elderly man with long gray hair and a matching beard. He wears a gold and white monocle over his left eye, without the addition of the chain. Odin wears a robe, which is short and blue with a gold lining on the top and bottom of the collar, the sleeves of the robe, and at the front of his robes, all the way down to the bottom of the robe. The rest of his robe is white with matching shoes. Odin also wears a golden and black hat, which is sectioned off into 5 mini sections that sport either the color black or gold. The top, middle, and bottom is gold, and the sections in black are below and above the middle one. Despite being a god, he is extremely perverted and has found companionship with Azazel in that regard, although the rest of his faction including his wife and children are embarrassed at his perverted antics. The next being to show was a beautiful young woman with a voluptuous figure and very blonde hair with matching eyes. She possesses delicate facial features, and her eyebrows are cut very short and round, a symbol of nobility. Her hair is tied in a loose ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs that ends in a spiral, with taut bandages to keep it in place. She can be seen wearing a traditional shrine maiden attire, and over that she wore a white coat held closed by a red ribbon and a golden crown. Her defining feature however were the 9 tails growing from her tailbone. This was Yasaka, a 9-tailed fox and leader of the Yokai. Accompanying Yasaka is one of the 3 Shinto deity, Amaterasu. She is a very beautiful woman, comparable to Gabriel, and even possesses a certain innocence much like her. She came along to ensure Yasaka's safety in case something went awry. Don't get her wrong, it is not that she does not think Yasaka can't take care of herself. She believes in her strength, and she knows that she could most likely take on Seraphil head-on, and most likely come out on top. However, against the likes of Surziches and Ajuka, who are seen as abnormalities amongst devils as their strength rivals that of even gods. They aren't called super devils for nothing, and against them, Yasaka wouldn't even stand a chance, especially if they unleashed their true forms. Although the true loss wouldn't just be Yasaka but her unborn child that she is carrying at the moment. Even though it cannot be seen, Yasaka is a few weeks pregnant and is carrying the heir of the Yokai, which is why Amaterasu came personally to guard her. Finally, the last being to appear was someone none of them would have thought would even venture outside his territory. It was Zeus, the god of lightning and the leader of the Greek pantheon. Zeus is tall, handsome man with blonde hair and bronze eyes. He looks young despite his actual age. He always seems to have a hard expression on his face. His hair is long and he has a goatee that covers most of his face. Zeus was wearing a red and white robe with accents of gold in it. Although, he mostly dresses like this to show off his wealth and power. Out of all the gods currently present, he was the strongest, although Surziches and Ajuka might be able to take him on in their true forms, but only together. Normally, he would never venture outside Olympus, but like the other gods, he too felt the primal energy irradiate even from his domain, which illustrates how powerful it really was, and deemed it necessary to investigate as a potential threat to Olympus, even going as far as stepping inside devil territory unannounced, which could be seen as an act of war. This only serves to prove how seriously he is taking this mysterious entity. After everyone appeared, Azazel decided to try and break the ice amongst the group. "I take it, you all came for the same reason as I?" "It would seem so," replied Ajuka. "Hey you old geezer, how have you been?" Azazel asked, waving enthusiastically at Odin. "Ho, I've been doing as good as I could be. Let me tell you, it isn't easy being the chief Norse leader when my own brats keep causing me headaches, except for Balder, he at least is quite considerate," sighed Odin, clearly tired at his son's antics. Between Thor's thrill for battle and Loki's mischief, he had no time to relax. "Ahaha, I feel you. How about I take you to an Ophis pub? Young girls from my organization recently opened up a shop in this town for the VIPs recently. It took me forever to get the approval of Surzich's. I will invite you there then. Azazel said, trying to cheer the old man up, which of course worked. You ho-ho. To be expected from Azazel boy. You sure know your things. Prepare me a big-breasted one right away. I'm going to grope many of them. He said with a perverted grin on his face. Follow my lead, shitty geezer. Welcome to Japan. Do you want to untie their kimono, Obi? That is something you must do at least once when you come to Japan. I will show you the Japanese style. Ho ho, I can't wait for it indeed. Auden replied. Surzich's, Ajuka and Michael could do nothing but sigh at their interaction, knowing that this is who they were. Despite the fact that both their factions aren't really allies, their leaders got along well. Amaterasu, however, started to get a bit annoyed at their antics. This was made clear by the small tick on her forehead. Gentlemen, I do not believe this is the time nor place to be having such conversation. She said, her smile ever so present, yet her tone was anything but pleasant, causing a small chill down Azazel and Auden's spine. Buzzkill, they both muttered, yet they understood that she was right. Moving his attention to another, Azazel decided to address the elephant in room. My, you are honestly one of the last people I would have ever guessed to come here, Zeus. I can understand Amaterasu and Yasaka's presence here, considering that Kuo is part of Japan, thus involved with the Shinto pantheon. Auden is in the process of peaceful negotiations with our factions, so his presence here is justifiable. You, however, never really set foot outside of Olympus, choosing to let your children deal with outside problems. Ahaha, you are correct, Azazel. That alone speaks volume on how dangerous this unknown entity is. I felt its power all the way from Olympus. It startled even, which is why he turned towards the devils, specifically Surzich's. I hope you will forgive my intrusion on your lands, coming by unannounced, bowing his head humbly. Boy, never thought I'd see modesty coming out of you. Giggled Auden. Watch it, you old perv. Zeus stared at Auden. However, before they got at each other's throats, Surzich's intervened. It is no trouble at all, Zeus-san. I understand that the situation at hand is very troubling, and I can understand from your point of view why you would want to investigate. Surzich's said. I have to admit that I'm surprised that you were able to sense the power all the way from Olympus. That would also mean that the other pantheons must have sensed it as well, stated Seraphol. I'm pretty sure they did, however the Celtics and Egyptian pantheon have always been secretive and elusive. They most likely felt the energy but did not care since it did not occur in their territory. In terms of the Hindu faction, we all know that Indra is not interested in anything but taking Shiva. The aforementioned god probably found this turn of events amusing and will most likely not intervene until he wants to. Explained Azazel, to which everyone nodded, agreeing with it. At least it means no one else will suddenly pop up here. We already have a lot to deal with and we do not need any more distractions. Surzich's added. Agreed. Do any of you have any idea what was that enormous power spike and who could have caused it? Asked Michael, bringing everyone back to the situation at hand. No one had an answer to that question. They looked around to see if there was any traces of the person or if there was any possible witnesses or bystanders. However, the area was completely desolate. Based on the level of destruction that occurred here, I originally assumed that it was done by a god. However, based on the readings I'm currently scanning, the energy that was released doesn't feel like that of any god. It felt more primal and destructive, like that of a dragon's, remarked Ajuka. Everyone gasped at that remark. Dragons have always been beings of pure power, and despite being relatively low in numbers are still beings that instill fear even to gods. In fact, if you looked at the top 5 strongest beings at the time before the heavenly dragons were sealed, the top 4 would be assigned to Great Red, Ophis, Drake and Albion, with Shiva taking the last spot as number 5. Yet, even he would fall at the heavenly dragon's ultimate breath. Although based on the level of destruction caused here, the dragon in question would have to be at least Dragon King level, if not at a heavenly dragon class, remarked Surzich's. I can guarantee you that it wasn't Midgardsormr. That fellow is still lying at the bottom of the ocean asleep and will not move until Ragnarok begins. I doubt anything would make him move. Auden stated as he stroked his beard. Ajuka followed after him, saying the same can be said for Tiamat. She is still dwelling within the familiar forest and does not seem to care much for anything else other than any information regarding Drake host. As for Tannen, Ajuka looked toward Surzich's, who simply shacked his head. Tannen is very busy taking care of his pack and raising dragon apples. I do not believe he would cause such an incident that would further antagonize people against dragons. Hell, he discarded his pride and became a devil with the sole purpose of saving his kind from extinction, so I highly doubt he would cause such devastation, knowing the repercussions it would cause to his kind. Everyone nodded, accepting his reasoning. I can vouch for Fafner's innocence at this. He is working with me on a special project of mine and hasn't gone missing. Although he is very strong, he is not one to cause such meaningless destruction unless someone went after his treasures. In addition, if he was responsible for the devastation here, we would see a variety of different weapons and sacred treasures left behind, therefore I can definitely conclude that it wasn't him. Azazel further stated his opinion. How about you, Long? Everyone took a moment to think about, but they all came to the same conclusion, which was no way. Yulong is the youngest of the Dragon Kings, so his strength is not in question, but rather his personality. He is a lazy dragon who retired after his biggest battle. He might be even lazier than Midargsimer. At least he said he would do something when the end of the world comes, but Yulong would most likely complain. It is a miracle that Sun Wukong is still able to tolerate that guy. I would have lost my temper ages ago, stated Zeus. Ho, it does not take much to make you lose your temper. Odin told Zeus, which caused Zeus to glare at him, but before he could start anything, Azazel quickly intervened by moving forth with the conversation. The last one, Vritra, has been sealed long ago after his defeat to Indra, so it definitely wasn't him. However, I highly doubt even a Dragon King could have caused this. The land and its surrounding have been reduced to ash. The level of power needed to accomplish this must have been great, at least God class, or I even dare say, this being holds power equivalent to a heavenly dragon. Explained Ajuka. What, a heavenly dragon? Have Dragon Albion been released from their sacred gears? Shouted Zeus. As strong as Zeus is, even he knows his limits and how outmatched he would be against either Drag or Albion. Everyone, except Azazel, who already knew the answer to this question, turned their attention to Michael, as if asking him the very same question, but he simply shook his head. No, according to the sacred gear system, Drag and Albion are still locked within the boosted gear and dividing gear respectively, so I can assure you it was not them. He stated with his traditional smile, relieving everyone's worry. Although this brought forth an entire new possibility that sent chills down their spine. Serziches voiced it himself. If it is not them, then we have to assume that it another dragon that possesses at the very least strength equivalent to that of Dragon Albion. Any ideas? He worriedly stated. This was not a pleasant theory should it be true. He, alongside his fellow faction leaders, could still recall the battle they had against the fearsome beasts of destruction. It took the combined might of all three great factions alongside the God of the Bible and the original 4 Devil Kings to take on the 2 dragons. Even though they won in the end, sealing the two dragons in sacred gears, the casualties suffered were astronomical. Millions of angels, fallen angels and devils, died in this conflict alone, and many more were injured, including God and the 4 original Devil Kings, and could not fight anymore. The mere thought of having to fight another dragon at that level terrified every leader present. Odin put forth his own thoughts while stroking his beard. How about the evil dragons then? They certainly have the audacity and strength to cause this amount of destruction. I had originally thought about it, but the only evil dragons that I could think of that could cause this would be Apophis the East Dragon, Ozzy Dahaka, the Diabolism Thousand Dragon, or Krom Kruich, the Crescent Circle Dragon, the strongest evil dragons known to exist. However, Apophis had been defeated centuries ago. The Idaka fought against the army of the gods of the Zoroastrianism, then was defeated by the hero, Rat Eona, and later sealed. Finally, Krom Kruich disappeared after the evil god Balor was defeated by La. Since no one has heard of him, it is presumed that he is either dead or sealed like the others. Explained Ajuka as he expressed his opinion on the matter. Abriel added her own 2 cents on the matter. In addition, even though the surrounding environments were destroyed, there have no reports of any casualties in Kuo. It seems as though whoever did this made sure not to harm the citizens. This is not the typical actions of an evil dragon who do not care about innocent lives. Very true, although that still does not eliminate the possibility that it could have been some other evil dragon. Added Amaterasu, who was looking at Yusaka when she said it. Yusaka lowered her head in sadness, understanding who she was talking about, although the rest of them didn't notice. Ajuka could see Azazel contemplating something and decided to ask him about it. Do you have some other guess as to who might be responsible for this, Azazel? Everyone turned their attention to Azazel, who sighed. I do, but I'm hoping to be wrong in this case, as it would be the absolute worst case scenario. He stated, causing his peers to raise an eyebrow in worry, wondering who he could be talking about. The only one who seemed to divine who Azazel was thinking about was Ajuka. You don't think it's he? Shuddered as he received a nod confirming his fear. Aye, there is a possibility that it could have been Ophis. Stated Azazel, surprising everyone, leaving an air of fear in the atmosphere. Ophis? Have you gone mad, Azazel? Why in hell would Ophis even bother attacking such a remote location as this? If I am not mistaken, Ophis has not been seen for the past 9 years or so why would she suddenly reappear and attack a random location owned by the devils? Unless, of course, they did something to stir her ire. Zeus shouted. I can assure all of you that we did no such thing and would not even dream to cause such a conflict, responded Serziches to Zeus' accusation. Let's calm down. There is no point in fighting amongst one another when all of this is simply speculations on Azazel's part. Michael said, getting in between the two leaders, succeeding in calming them down. In other words, we are no closer to figuring out who did this, Zeus commented. It was Seraphil who decided to answer his query. Unfortunately, not, however we will begin issuing a full investigation to figure out who or what caused this. After all, we cannot let little Riaz-chan occupy a dangerous territory. She winked at Surziches when she said that, and he answered with a thankful smile as she continued on. Also, my little Sonatan is interested in coming to school here, so her big sister magical Leviathan will sparkle and make all dangers go away, waving her wand for extra emphasis. She went from serious to playful in one go, which at least relaxed a tense atmosphere going on. I can provide you some aid with your investigation. This being could pose a potential threat to not only the Devil's faction but to ours as well, so I would like to assist in any way I can. Azazel told the mass. We, the Seraphs, would also like to help you as well. We currently have a ceasefire amongst our factions, but this could be the first step to achieve peace between us. Michael added. Thank you, Azazel and Michael. We will accept your aid. Surziches thanked them with a small bow. This time, Yasaka stepped forward to ask, forgive me for imposing Lord Surziches, but would it be troublesome to ask you to keep me and Lady Amaterasu informed of any progress in your investigation? I would be very grateful for this favor, and if you wish, we can also provide a bit of assistance. She said, bowing towards the mass, which was then followed by Amaterasu doing the same thing. I ask the very same from you. If you would be so kind as to keep us informed, we would be grateful. It is no problem whatsoever, Yasaka, Amaterasu-san. We understand that this being may be a potential threat to not only our three factions, but to the rest as well, therefore, it is only natural that you would wish to know who did this. Seraphil will be in charge of the investigation and will relay any progress we have made. We will also keep the Norse faction and Olympus informed as a show of goodwill. Azazel, can you please keep Odin informed of any progress, and may I ask you, Michael and Gabriel, to do the same with Olympus? Surziches asked his fellow leaders. Sure, no problem. I'll keep this old geezer informed. Azazel answered, pointing at Odin. It would be my pleasure, said Michael. Same here. It has been a while since I last talked to Hera-san, Artemis and Athena. I cannot wait to see them again. Gabriel followed up after Michael, excited at the prospect of seeing her friends again, although her remark caught Zeus by surprise. You met with my wife and daughters. What did you talk about? Zeus was a bit unnerved at the fact that his wife and daughter may have spilled some unnecessary information about Olympus, or even worse, talking about him, so he tried to divine some information out of Gabriel. However, Gabriel simply giggled and placed a single finger on her. Sorry, it's a CCR. Zeus, understanding he will get nothing, decided it was time to go back home as matters were settled. Very well, I guess I will go back home and explain to my faction what has occurred here. I will wait for your report, Seraph, Michael and Gabriel. They both nodded and Zeus disappeared after that. Odin, Yasaka and Amaterasu left soon afterwards, leaving only the three faction leaders by themselves. I will start coordinating our forces to begin an investigation as soon as possible. I will also let them know that they will be working alongside fallen angels and not cause any unnecessary conflicts. Although, it will take some time to get used to it. Seraphil stated. Very well, I will notify my group and let them know of our collaborated effort. The leader of the investigation group will be Penemu-san, and since this is Devil territory, I will let her know that she has to abide by your instructions, Seraphil, but she is exemplary worker, and I have no doubt you two will work fine together. Azazel told her. Michael followed soon after. And I will send my brother Raphael to aid you. He is a very smart and a meticulous individual, so he might pick on things that others may have missed. Very well, once more I wish to thank you all for the aid you are providing and hope this is a start for the peace we all desire. Hopefully, this unknown individual isn't a threat. I would much rather have him as an ally, but all we can do is hope the investigation bears fruit and reveals the information we require. Finished Surziches as everyone nodded and teleported back to their homes, all of them ignorant of what transpired during their conversation. In the dimensional gap, 30 minutes ago. While the leaders of each factions were busy talking to one another, a portal opened up in the dimensional gap where a large crimson dragon was sent spiraling through. Regaining his bearing, Issei used his wings to rebalance himself, and from his expression, you could tell that he was enraged at being tossed aside. With an enormous burst of speed, unbefitting his size, he slashed at his father with his claw. Great Red, not expecting this speed from his son, could do nothing but raise his arms to guard. Unfortunately, his human form did not provide as much defense as his dragon form, as blood spurted out of his arms from Issei's slash. Luckily it was a minor wound, for Great Red at least, and his regenerative abilities healed him up very fast, leaving only a few scars in its place. Having gained distance from his enemy, Issei began to charge up a roar and fired it towards Great Red, who immediately retaliated with his own. Both attacks collided with each other, causing a massive explosion blocking each other view of one another. However, Issei took advantage of this as he appeared through the smoke, rearing his fist backwards, engulfing it in crimson flames, swinging it towards his father. This time, however, Great Red had enough time to harden his entire body and scales and crossed his arms ready to take the attack. Yet, when Issei's attack struck him, he felt an incredible amount of pain in his stomach as he was blasted backwards a great deal. It appears as though his son's attack not only pierced through his guard, but the fire even managed to cause damage to his stomach. Regaining his bearings, he looked over himself to check the damage, and he saw his arms were scorched, leaking a lot of blood, and his stomach was also charred by Issei's crimson flame. He was incredibly surprised. It seems those flames of his were a manifestation of his son's limitless potential and strength. Even though this was not the time or place, he could not help but feel overwhelming pride at how powerful his son really is. "That's my boy," he thought to himself. Not even the feared ultimate attacks of Dragon Albion, said to be able to reduce even a god to ash, was able to even scratch him, and yet here was his son, barely even 10 years old, displaying strength that far surpasses that of the heavenly dragons, despite being a youngling himself. Unfortunately, his son did not give him time to relax as he dived forward towards him once more. They started trading blows with one another, with Great Red taking the major bulk of the damage between them. This was due to two reasons. The first is, as stated previously, his flames are able to penetrate through his defenses and cause him severe damage, so he has no choice but to evade or dodge Issei's strikes completely, since even a mere graze causes moderate pain. The second reason is that Great Red is holding back as he does not wish to kill his son, simply incapacitate him, but Issei is not holding back one bit. Great Red understood that his options were very limited to defeat his son in the stadias. He considered at one point to transform into his dragon form to overpower Issei, but his son's flames rendered that idea useless. All it would do was give Issei a bigger target to hit, and he would not be able to deal with his son's speed, so he remained in human form. This left only one option, and that is to get Ophis help to stop their son, but he knew it would be difficult. "Ophis, I know this is going to sound impossible, but I need your help to stop our son." "Are you out of your mind? There is no way I can hurt my little boy. I can't do this," Ophis told him, trying so desperately not to cry at the situation they are in. Knowing that time was of the essence, he could not afford to start arguing with her, so he shouted to get his point across. "Ophis, if we do not do something soon, then Issei will die." Seeing that this caught her attention, he decided to continue, albeit in a less violent tone. "Issei's body is not yet strong enough to hold the massive power he holds within him. That is the reason why we placed many layers of seals on him. You know this. But now, with the seals removed, his body is slowly breaking apart. Even now, our son's body is slowly taking damage from his own power." She shifted her attention from her husband to her son and could immediately tell that he was right. There were small fractures all across his body, and more were appearing by the second. His body could still not withstand the overwhelming power he possesses. "If we do not do something soon, then Issei's body will implode upon itself and he will die. I know very well how painful the mere idea of hurting him is. Do you think I want to do this to my own son? Every single hit I inflict on him causes my heart to break in pieces, and through our scuffle, I can tell that, for whatever reason, Issei is suffering greatly. However, at this moment, this is the only means of saving him, so please Ophis, help me save our son." Seeing Issei's state and knowing that her husband's claim was right, she tried to muster as much courage as possible to do the unthinkable. She would most likely be devastated, but at the very least, their son would be alive, and, at this very moment, that is all that she wants. "Very well, for the sake of our son, I will help you, but we need to make this quick. I simply cannot bear to inflict too much harm to Issei." She told him, and he simply nodded, agreeing with her statement. It isn't easy for him as well, and finishing this as soon as possible is the most viable plan. All of a sudden, they turned their attention towards Issei, who was responsible for the roar, and they saw him began to gather massive amount of energy towards his mouth. It seems he was preparing to unleash a devastating roar. Nevertheless, Great Red could tell that he was aiming to finish things, as the amount of power is far larger in this attack than it was in the previous breath. However, this also means that time is running out for Issei. Looks like Issei is planning to finish this with one massive attack. We will need to combine our powers together in order to counter his. We need to finish this quickly, as Issei's body will no longer be able to sustain the massive power building within himself and eventually self-destruct. Great Red stated to Ophis, who simply nodded as both dragons gathered massive amount of energy into their hands for the final assault. Having finished gathering his power, Issei unleashed his most devastating roar up to date towards his parents, who unleashed their own attack simultaneously as both their power melded together to form one massive wave. Both attacks collided with one another, causing multiple shockwaves reverberating throughout the dimensional gap as both attacks struggled to gain dominance over the other. For a moment, both sides were at a deadlock until one side was slowly giving way. Issei could feel his attack slowly being overpowered, so he tried to gush out even more power from his being, despite the fact that his body was literally shredding itself apart. The more he did so, however, his rage clouded his rationality. Seeing his body near its limits, both Great Red and Ophis knew they had to finish this now, so with one final push, they unleashed everything they had. With the added force from both dragon gods, Issei's attack started getting slowly overpowered as their combined might was making its way towards him until, finally, Issei's breath attack dissipated and he was enveloped by his parents' assault. Aiyarg. He let out one final painful scream before a massive explosion erupted, which could be felt throughout the dimensional gap. Ophis and Great Red were seen breathing heavily. This was the first time in their life that they ever had to fight seriously. Add on the fact that they had to fight against their own son, their mental exhaustion was beyond normal. They were praying that the fight was over as they could not bear to hurt their son any longer, and that was especially true for Ophis, who couldn't bear this any longer. As the dust settled, they could see the shadow of a small figure through the smoke. Eventually, it cleared out and revealed an unconscious Issei drifting aimlessly. Issei. Both of them shouted at the same time and dashed towards him. After reaching him, Ophis quickly scooped him up in her arms to check if he was even alive. Luckily, she could feel him breathing. However, one good look was able to determine that his body was anything but okay. He had many bleeding cuts all over his body, a few bruises courtesy of his fight with her husband, and the worst part were both his arms that were completely broken. He must have used them at the last second to protect himself against their combined assault. Ophis quickly began to use her powers to heal him as much as possible, but she could not stop the tears from falling off her beautiful face over the sad state her son was presently in. Great Red voiced her inner thoughts out loud. Thank the heavens he is alive. Breathing out a huge sigh of relief that his son made it out alive. However, looking over Issei's current state was anything but pleasant as he continued speaking, and not a moment too soon. If the fight had lasted any longer, his body would not have survived the influx of power within himself, and Issei would no longer be with us. And not a moment too soon, he thought to himself. However, now that the current crisis has been dealt with, Great Red tried to process how all of this came about. He started recalling every single detail since the moment of Issei's departure till now. Eventually, he came upon a realization about the location they found their son in. At the time, he was too preoccupied to get his son out of there to even think about where they were, but now that he is in a calmer state of mind, he recognized that the place they teleported to was Barakiel's shrine, which only gave way to very grim thoughts. The only way to figure out the truth was to contact Barakiel and find out. He conjured a telepathic link towards Barakiel and waited for him to pick up. A few moments later, the signal connected. Barakiel, do you have a moment? Red-san, he answered back, albeit in a sad state. His voice sounded incredibly distraught, which was already a very bad sign. What's going on, Barakiel? You sound distraught. Worried Great Red. They're gone, Red wailed Barakiel. What do you mean? Who is gone? He asked, however, fearing he already knew the answer given everything that he understood, but still praying for the slim chance that he was wrong. Once again, reality proves to be a cruel mistress. Shuri and Akeno. Somehow, Jitsusha figured out our location, and while I was gone, they killed my wife. I was able to kill them before they moved on to my daughter, before I felt an ominous presence outside, which turned out to be a trap from Himejima clan. Trapped in a barrier, I could do nothing but watch as lighting came down and decimated my home along with Akeno. Cried Barakiel. No, it can't be. I failed them, Red. I couldn't protect them. I can't believe this, but this does explain what happened with Issei, Great Red said. Issei? At the mention of him, Barakiel quickly showed concern. What happened? Is he okay? Despite having recently lost his family, he was still able to show concern over Issei's well-being, which honestly touched Great Red's heart. Unfortunately, not. On our way home, Issei said that he left something at your place and left to get it. Moments later, Ophis and I felt Issei's power spiral out of control. We quickly teleported to his location, only find him, in his dragon form, rampaging with intense rage. Knowing that other supernatural beings would come by, we forced Issei into the dimensional gap where we had no choice but to knock him unconscious, which we managed to do. I didn't understand what led to this, which is why I called you, but with what you just told me, it stands to reason that Issei witnessed Akeno's demise, which sent him over the edge. Damn it, how could this have happened? He said, barely able to contain his sadness, which Barakiel could sense. So that colossal energy I felt was from Issei. Barakiel was surprised at the revelation before reverting back to sadness as he understood that Issei went through a terrible ordeal. Take care of Issei, Red. He needs you now more than ever. A young man like him should have never gone through what he just did. Yeah, I know. Take care of yourself, Barakiel. Great Red said to him. You too, Red. Responded Barakiel before he ended his call. After finishing his conversation with Barakiel, he hung up his telepathic connection thinking about everything he just heard. He still could not believe all that has transpired and that Akeno and Shuri were gone. His son's rage suddenly made a lot of sense. He felt extreme rage over what happened to his friend's family, which then gave way to sadness as he felt extremely bad for Barakiel and can't even begin to imagine his sadness at losing his entire family in one day. He then remembers a promise he made some years ago to help his family in their time of need, and yet now it seems he failed to keep that promise. He clenched his fist so hard that a few drops of blood could be seen dripping out his hand. He was not only angry at the situation, but also towards himself for being so useless when they needed him most. For the first time since his existence, the most powerful being in existence felt powerless. A thought that was most likely shared by his wife as she holds on to the unconscious Issei for dear life. He needed to unleash his frustrations in the dimensional gap, for he knew that if he did it in the human world, Japan would most likely have perished with his outburst. So, he transformed back into his dragon form and unleashed his emotions in the form of a mighty roar. His roar reverberated across the dimensional gap, expressing his anger and his sorrow as tears started leaking from his eyes. After a few moments, his roar stopped as he regained his human form and moved towards his wife. Seeing him come forward, she looked towards him, eyes all red from all the crying she did, and asked him. What would happened? Ophis needed to know and understand what had happened that led her son into the state he was currently in. She knew it was really bad considering the outburst Great Red went through, and he is usually the more calm one of the two. With great anguish, he recounted everything he heard from Barakiel from the time he returned to the present moment. To say she was shocked was an understatement. She moved her hand to cover her face as fresh tears started dripping from her face again. No, Shuri and even Akeno. How can this be? She doesn't want to believe that such a thing has occurred. How could we have let this happen to Issei not once, but twice? We are supposed to be his parents and protect him from shit like this, and yet, we failed him when he needed us most. What kind of a horrible mother am I to allow such a thing? I'm so sorry, Issei, she sobbed looking at Issei. Seeing this, Great Red quickly embraced her and rubbed her back to try and comfort her. No, don't blame yourself for any of this. It is not your fault. If anything, the blame is mine to bear, for it is the responsibility of the father to ensure his family's well-being and safety, and I failed at both, it seems, he grimly said, causing Ophis to look up and see her husband's sorrow at his own uselessness, slowly raising her hand towards his face and giving him a gentle rub. Silently trying to console him, which allowed Great Red to form a smile. He then turned his attention towards Issei. The problem now is, how are we going to comfort our son? What do you mean? Questioned Ophis, although she probably knew the answer to her question, but Great Red answered it anyways. You know, as well as I do, how much he cared about Akeno. She is his first love, and they would most likely have become mates in the future. Even though it isn't his fault, knowing him, he will probably blame himself for failing to protect her. He looked at his unconscious Aunt Solemni and continued. This situation is laughable. Barakiel-san has just lost his family and is most likely suffering by himself. Issei is probably just as devastated as him, having lost the love of his life, and I cannot think or do a single thing to help him. Tears slowly started dripping from his face as he continued speaking. Many beings fear me for the strength I possess, and even proclaim me as the strongest being, and yet what good is all this power when it fails to be of use whenever it matters most? My friends and family are suffering and I can't do anything. He shouted the last part as the dam broke again and started crying once more. Seeing her husband cry broke her heart, so she did the only thing she could think of to console him. She brought his face forward and at him tenderly square on the surprising Great Red, greatly returning as his emotions slowly calmed down, having the desired effect Ophis wanted. As they parted, Ophis looked straight into his eyes with a few tears visible on her face as well and said. The only thing we can do for Issei right now is support him with everything we have. We cannot change the past, and despite how devastated we feel for failing our son not once but twice, there is nothing we can do but move forward. What we can do and should do is ensure that something like this never happens again on our watch. Great Red smiled at her, thankful for her support as he grabbed her hand and squeezed it a bit. Thanks, Ophis. I really appreciate this. You really are the best mate a dragon could ever hope for, he said, causing Ophis to display a light blush, but grateful that he was cheering up a bit. As much as she hated to admit it, she loved his obnoxious attitude full of life and energy, so seeing him in sorrow felt wrong. Suddenly, Ophis felt Issei rustle in her hands, meaning that he was about to wake up. His eyes slowly began to open and held his head as if he had the biggest migraine ever. Not surprising considering that he had to be taken down by his parents. He scanned his surroundings and saw that he was with his parents, but instead of Kuo, they were back in their original home, the dimensional gap, and he had no idea how they ended up there. Mom, Dad, what is this? What happened? He started to ask when all of a sudden, his memories began to resurface on the tragedy he saw occur right before his eyes. Akeno and Auntie Shuri were gone, and he was powerless to do anything. His emotions shifted from confusion to sadness as he began crying in his mother's arms. And then no, this cannot be. Auntie Shuri and Akeno can't be gone. Ophis was simply devastated seeing the state her son was in, and could do nothing but embrace him as much as she could, even though it would not take the pain away, as Issei continued sobbing in her chest. He then went from self-denial to self-loathing. I failed them. I failed Akeno. I promised to protect her from harm, and yet when she needed me the most, I was powerless to do anything. He slowly recalled the times he promised himself he would grow up to become a splendid dragon like his parents, and how he had promised Akeno to always protect her. Ugh, I'm a failure of a dragon, I'm a failure as a friend. Akeno-chan, I'm so sorry. He kept repeating the same apologizes over and over. Look at me, Issei. Ophis said as she lifted her son's chin so he could look at her in the eyes. You should not feel guilty over events that were beyond your control. What happened today was not your fault, nor Barakiel's nor anybody. It is the actions of very bad men that caused this tragedy, and all blame lies with them, not you. Plus from what your father told me, it would seem that in your rage, you wiped out the assailants responsible for killing Akeno, so, although this will not bring them back, you did manage to avenge them, so please stop blaming yourself for something that is clearly not your fault. You know that Shuri and Akeno would want you to live your life moving forward. Saying the last part with tears dripping down her face. Your mother is right, son. This tragedy is in no ways your fault, but we must all move on. We will always cherish the precious memories we built together with them, and as long as that exists, they will always be with us, in our dreams and in our hearts. Added Great Red, looking at his son, who in turn listened, knowing deep in his heart that they were right, so he released everything. He unleashed all his suffering, crying loudly, clutching at his mother's chest. She in turn embraced him with as much tenderness and love as she could, while also letting out tears of sadness. Great Red moved forward and embraced both his wife and his son, as they all mourned the loss of their closest friends and family. Minutes passed by and eventually, the crying and sobbing calmed down as Issei separated from his mother's and father's embrace. Sniff, I want to get stronger. He said, looking at his parents, who were taken by surprise by his sudden declaration. Nevertheless, he continued. I want to gain the strength to be able to protect those I care for, so that something like this never happens again, so that I never have to feel so useless ever again. He told them with clear grief in his voice, yet his eyes were filled with absolute determination to get stronger. That's my boy. Smirked his father as he rubbed his son's head, while his mother finally let out a smile, happy at the interaction between father and son. Alright, I guess it is time to return home, Ophis said as she was starting to get ready to go back, only to be stopped by Great Red, who shook his head. Unfortunately, that is not the best idea at the present moment, he said. Ophis tilted her head a bit, not understanding why they could not go back, causing Great Red to chuckle at the adorable gesture his wife did before explaining his reason. Before we entered the dimensional gap, I sensed the presence of multiple signatures heading towards the shrine. As a result of Issei's outburst, the factions must have sent people to investigate the commotion, and from what I sensed, I can safely deduce that they were in fact leaders of their respective faction. They will most likely put Kuo under tight supervision, which is why that, at the present moment, it is not a good idea to return there. Right now, they are in a state of high alert, so any form of magic, no matter how small, will alert them to our presence, and at the moment, I do wish to enter an unnecessary conflict with them. So, for now, we will be moving to another location. Explained Great Red. I understand, but then where will we live? Are we going to remain here in the dimensional gap? She asked her husband, who grabbed his chin thinking about her question. After a few moments of thinking, he came up with an answer. After some thought, I believe we should head to Tannen's territory. Tannen's territory? Didn't we previously agree that it might be too risky to live there due to the possibility of exposure? Although Issei has grown up, I do not want him in any more danger. She asked Great Red, who answered. After what happened today, neither do I, and make no mistake, I will make sure that it never happens again, but that is beside the point. Back then, our primary concern was the development of Issei's social skills, which was why we selected a human city. Granted, it did not turn out the way we hoped, but thanks to his interactions with Akeno, everything turned out well. The second reason coincides with recent events. Issei's little rampage might have brought us an unexpected benefit. Ophis had question marks on top of her head, not understand how it is possible as Great Red continued due to the amount of devastation caused by Issei. The devils will most likely issue an investigation to figure out what caused such destruction. They, most likely, have figured out that only a being of great power was responsible for this and thus is a threat to their faction. This will cause them to employ much of their resources and attention into the city, giving us a better chance to remain hidden in Tannen's territory. In addition, from what Barakiel told me years ago, the fallen angels, devil and angels, have been vying for peace together, so there is a big chance that they will send additional resources and manpower to aid the devils, meaning we do not have to worry about them either. Explained Great Red to Ophis, who now understood his point of view and had to acknowledge the validity of his statement. The final reason is for Issei's sake. As much as it embarrasses me to admit it, Tannen is a far better trainer than either you or I. He has spent most of his time training other younglings to be the best they can be and therefore is the most qualified to train Issei since, let's face it, neither you nor I ever trained a single day in our lives. We were born powerful, two of the most powerful beings in existence without doing a single thing. As a result, we would not be able to train Issei in an efficient manner compared to Tannen. Furthermore, being introduced to the dragon community, Issei will be able to make tons of new friends who will not shun him for his power. Right now, after everything that has happened, I believe that he will need this now more than ever, he told his wife, who simply nodded. However, will he allow us to reside in his territory? It is my understanding that he was reincarnated into a devil. Won't he alert the devils of our presence? Ophis asked her husband, who immediately answered. No, I don't think so. Tannen's primary objection is, and always has been, the survival of the dragon's race. In fact, the only reason he even discarded his pride, which is something extremely difficult for any dragon to do, and turned into a devil was so that he could claim the underworld territory that contained the last known batch of dragon apples and ensure the survival of our species that depended on those fruits to survive. So no, he would not turn us over to the devils, and if we explain the current circumstances, I'm pretty sure he will accommodate us. He is one of the more reasonable dragons that exist today. Great Red said with absolute certainty, so Ophis decided to trust in her husband's judgment just as she had done over the years. Alright, then it is settled. Are you ready, Issei? She said, shifting her attention to her son, who remained quiet during that entire conversation, nodded vigorously at her question. Yes, Mom. I will train myself to the bone and I will definitely become stronger. Strong enough to protect my loved ones, including the both of you. Just watch me. Issei stated, revealing a bright smile that his parents missed so much and were not sure they would ever see again, causing both of them to beam with happiness. That's the spirit, son. Let us go then. It is the start of a brand new journey. His father said as he started applying his magic to teleport them to their destination. With renewed determination and a new goal in mind, Issei took the first step towards the future as he looked up to the sky with a passing thought. Please watch over me, Auntie Shuri and Akeno. I vow to you that I will become stronger so that such tragedy will never fall to anyone else I care about. I will always remember the treasured moments we have had together as I move forward, so you don't need to worry about me. I hope you may both rest in peace wherever you are. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the MAIRSARMY321 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.